Howdy ho, Sifters! It's Friday night, and that can mean just one thing. It's time for GameFace at SIFTD.net on Sifted Games in what could be our final episode here in our studio.
Sifted, the GameFace, Infinity War, the last showdown.
And I do appreciate that some of you decided to stick around and watch our stream instead of going to see Infinity War.
What is wrong with you? I already saw it. So.
Yeah, I am. I may actually go see a movie in the theater. I think I may go see this one.
You should go.
I didn't go see Black Panther, but...
Well, that's your problem.
I don't go to movies.
No, but that was a good one. But like, if you're going to see one Marvel movie in a theater this year, and you haven't already seen Black Panther, you should see this.
So I should see Infinity War instead of Black Panther?
No, I think you should see both. But if you absolutely insist on one or the other, Infinity War has more like, oh my god, I'm glad I saw that on a big screen.
Okay.
Also, Black Panther made like $1.3 billion. They're good.
Yeah.
They did just fine.
Yeah, I'll wait for
Black
that
Panther 2 is probably happening.
Yeah, I think it's definitely
2, 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, absolutely. It is Friday night. Thank you for joining us on your Friday evening. Hopefully you guys are kicking up your feet after a long week of work. We're still going at it here. I was on a show today called Game Talk Live. The archive of that episode is up on the site right now. We curated it.
Marcus was very good and didn't swear.
Yeah. Well, he apparently is on that show a lot.
Yeah.
I've never even really watched that show before.
I'd never heard of it, but it seemed kind of like what we were trying to do with the Daily X Play back in 2008 a little bit.
Yeah.
Except they actually got people to be on it.
Yeah. But apparently he's been on there several times. It's the first time for me, but it's kind of a straighter news show for games, I guess is a good way to put it.
It's a straight-up talking head kind of thing.
It's only like 30 minutes, though. I was shocked at how short it is. It's like, wait, you guys do all this production? So I've been in touch with them for like 4 days doing pre-pro, and I was like, you guys do all this work for a 30-minute show?
How many times do they is it every day?
I think they do it 2 or 3 times a week, actually. Yeah, so, anyway, it's up on the Sifted homepage right now. You can check it out after GameFace. So this
or simultaneously, if you just want gibberish in your ear and sound from everything.
Yeah, it's Marcus, myself, and Ray Carcillo, who actually Ray has been on GameFace before. Literally, like the first 20 episodes, I think he came in and did an episode to fill in one time. He used to work for EGM, now he's working at Machinima. But anyway, I thought the discussion was pretty interesting. It's all about video game reviews and whether it's still relevant and blah, blah, blah. But I've been in here all day. Had to come in and set up for that, and I just decided to stick around and hang out here for GameFace with you guys. So this might be the last episode here. We are getting kicked out next Friday, the 4th, which maybe we can slide a show in.
I don't think that's going to work. That's riding the ragged edge of disaster.
What I thought about was just basically moving everything else out. I have to do a lot of moving in here this weekend. I have to get so much crap out of here. But I thought maybe just leaving it just bare bones so we could do a show as one last farewell.
Because there's nothing bare bones about that.
Yeah.
You still need furniture and cameras.
No, I'm saying get rid of all that. And you and I just sit here on. I don't know. Maybe I'm just holding on to something I don't want to let go.
Don't hold on to the blank white room, Shane. It's not worth it.
We'll see. We will have a show next week.
Although I know we could go viral if the building security that doesn't exist busts in and
throws
us
out. Yeah, I think the bigger problem is I'm not sure if the internet is cut off here on the 4th, midnight of the 3rd, or if it runs for the whole end of the day on the 4th. I have to look into that. But
usually there's no schedule for that. It could happen anytime.
Well, I told them they can't cut it off before the 4th.
Right, but that means they could mean anything.
Right.
It could be any time during the day they cut it off.
That's true. Yeah, so there is going to be a show next week. Where it will be a complete mystery, so you have to tune in and find out. We could be, in my apartment. We could be at a park somewhere. You just don't know.
And we don't know either, apparently.
Yeah, I am getting a little weepy thinking about moving out of here. I've been in here for 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's pretty crazy to think about.
Maybe one last burglary for old time's sake.
No, that's my worst fear, actually, is that with a week to go, somebody comes in here and takes a bunch of stuff out of here. Not that I leave that much here overnight anyway, but there's some stuff that they could get. So we'll see. You'll know next Friday
where we're going to Pikachu, which really looked like it was sitting on your shoulder through most of the interview today.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, that bottle up there. when I first started shooting, I had it like right above my head, and it looked like I had like a. So I like moved that, but I did not pick up on the Pikachu thing. So anyway, here we are for GameFace 126. We do have a great episode for you guys. You may have thought this was a quiet week in games, but it absolutely was not. We have a ton of great topics. One more housekeeping thing. If you could subscribe through Twitch Prime on the stream, that would be great. We are tracking pretty far below where we were the last couple months. So I saw a few of you guys already did that when you jumped on the stream tonight. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. But if any of you guys haven't done it yet for this month, please do. It's a free $2.50 for us. And for those of you on YouTube who are watching this archive several days later than our patrons, please? It's really not hard.
Why not?
I mean, we've been giving you Pack or Factor and GameFace for free. It literally takes like a minute to go to our Twitch channel and give us a free $2.50 if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber. We would really, really appreciate it. So that's it. It might be the final intro in our old digs, but let's get on with the show. We're going to talk about God of War again. Because last week we talked about it. We both were, I was about 10 or 15 hours into it. Mm-hmm. You were about the same, maybe a little less, or maybe you were ahead of me last week.
I was way ahead of you.
Yeah, and I just lapped your ass over the last 7 days because the game is so freaking good. It is so good, Matt. Like we published my game eval yesterday, and anytime I write game evals or do anything serious editorially, I keep hyperbole out of it. So I don't make like crazy declarative statements, but this is a frickin' podcast, and I've got to say that I don't know that I've enjoyed a game as much as I've enjoyed God of War since Resident Evil 4. That is a big, big statement coming from me. To me, this game just got better and better and better as it went on. By the time I finished it, I don't know exactly how long I spent. I think it was around 40 hours. It could have been more.
Sounds about right.
I didn't want it to end. I wanted it to just keep going. And truth be told, they throw you back out into the open world and you can continue like mopping up side quests.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely going to do that, Matt. And I cannot remember the last game like this where the game ended with stuff left to do and I actually went back and did it. I know people
it helps
have been...
that the combat system actually has some meat on it.
It's
fun to play. Like that, you weren't just trying to finish a story. It's fun to play it.
No, a lot of times, like when I get to the end of games like this, I feel like the last like 5 or 10 hours, I'm like, okay, like this can end now. Mm-hmm. This game, no way. I simply did not want it to end. I don't know how much higher of a recommendation I can give to a game. I mean, the crazy thing to me is that it still has old aesthetics to it because it's designed. It's not an open world game. Mm-hmm. It's about as close as you can get to being open world without being open world.
Yeah,
but
it's in that sense, it's a little bit like The Witcher 2, where it was just like big open areas.
That's a good analogy.
You have to transition between those areas.
Yep. Because there's lots of times where you play it where and Sam, when we were talking before the show, he's like, it's an open world game, right? But because you look at it, it feels like it is. But technically, it's not.
Yeah, there's places to openly explore, but it's not like here's a giant map with stuff to do that you just run from place to place. There's gateways you have to get through story-wise. There's the collectibles are not as out of control as a Ubisoft game, for instance. And usually most of that stuff is fairly meaningful, I would say.
Almost all.
There's a couple of like just sort of like, hey, go pick up go kill these guys that were my crew or whatever, but like for the most part I'd say like the side quests or the favors as they call them further things and give you worthwhile items and expand the world well enough that they're worth doing.
I also wish I had gone and recorded more B-roll because obviously this footage we're looking at right now is literally the first like few hours of the game when I first started playing it. And by the time I got to the end of the game, watching me play now is a completely different story from...
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to do that.
It spoils too much.
Like one of my friends came over the other day, and I had it on pause. And I was pretty far. I was probably like 80% of the way through at that point. And he came over, and he's like, oh, let me see what it looks like. I'm like, and he's playing it. He's very like hour 2 in.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I can't unpause it, because I had it on the on the screen where you see the armor. Where,
Yeah,
you know, and like, you know, he's like, oh, you got fancy armor. I'm like, yeah, I can't unpause it because like the dialogue they're gonna have is gonna, and where they are is gonna
ruin something.
You know, expose some stuff about, and like really, it's about, you know, I'm not a total like, oh no spoilers, pristine. I can't know. I don't care about that shit.
Yeah.
But like, and in fact, I know Norse mythology well enough that early on in the setup, I realized a lot of what was going to happen, but the way it unfolds and how it happens is worth being surprised by.
It's also one of those games where once it ends, you start looking back at things that happened throughout the game where you're kind of like, what? What's that? And you're like, oh my gosh, now I totally get
I think
what was going on there.
I think this is a long game, but I think narratively it would be an interesting second playthrough knowing what you know.
Yeah, just to see if there were other little clues hidden here and there. I am shocked at how much I like this game. I mean, I've liked God of War in the past. I kind of started to burn out on it a little bit.
I didn't finish 3.
I did. I mean,
I basically bailed out in that big Hades maze.
Yeah. I get it. But for me, by the last, is kind of what I was saying earlier. The last 4 or 5 hours of that game, I was fighting to get to the end of the game. I wasn't necessarily enjoying it all that much at that point.
The other
I
God
had
of War
enjoyed a lot leading up to that, but it kind of like burn out.
And I felt like the at least the later God of War is like 3 and Ascension. At a certain point, I felt like I was just like grinding my way from boss fight to boss fight. Like the individual, like the combat with the kind of cannon fodder enemies was not enjoyable and just sort of a waste of my time.
It was just a means to an end.
Yeah, and that's never true in this game.
Never.
Like every fight is interesting. Even like, you know, there's a one of the realms you can go to is just basically an arena battle thing. You just you know, work your way up through harder and harder fights. And I had one fight where I had to kill 100 enemies, and it was great.
Yeah, it
was.
I've impressed myself, surprised myself so many times playing this game. Like some of those scenarios where you just drop into a room and enemies just start flooding in. Your first instinct is, I'll never get through this. I'm so screwed. And then somehow you start using all the tools that you're given, and you can work it out so many different ways too, because I used the crap out of Atreus, Kratos' son. You came in here today, you're like, I hardly even used him.
I keep forgetting about it. I use him like if you can use the summons with him to like electrify everybody or whatever.
Yeah.
I use that when I get in serious trouble.
I used the wolves.
But I continually, I'll continually finish a fight, and he'll say like, I didn't really do much that time, and I'm like, oh right, I forget. Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
But that's another thing that's cool. Like if he really takes over a fight, after the fight's over, there are different things that they say to each other based upon how much you utilized him.
And to be fair, like in the harder fights in the game, you have to use, like he's a key part of your arsenal in the
because there are certain enemies where he is extremely valuable. Where literally like one arrow from him can drop a guy that might take you 8 or 10 whacks of your axe to take down.
Yeah, it's like I had to learn like kind of the thing where, you know, there's the guy's far away, they're charging up their red attack that can't be blocked, I can't get to them in time. Oh right, I can shoot him with Atreus.
And after you level him up, I don't want to spoil too much, but after you level him up, his arrows start taking different properties that can be really, really valuable in some of the game's harder
filling
fights.
Filling out the skill tree happens pretty early, really, but like
I actually filled up all my trees like 10 minutes before I fought the final boss.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you said you don't have Atreus all the way filled up.
I have a skill tree filled out, but I don't have like you have the blacksmith upgrades. I don't have all that. I gave him a nice suit of armor, nice high level suit of armor, but they want like 60,000 silver for the last upgrade. And I'm like, he's doing fine. He doesn't.
Well, I can tell you do not need that. It's at that point it's just for vanity. Like you get the armor before that. The
skills are the most important thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I did not fill up my skill tree completely until like 10 minutes before the final fight.
Huh. Yeah. I was full hours and hours and hours.
Really?
And hours
did
ago.
you do a lot of side quests?
Yes, I did.
I do. Why did I even ask that question?
I do everything. If there's something to do before I can move on in the story, I do it. And in fact, I got myself in trouble a couple times because some of the optional stuff clearly meant to be done later.
Oh my gosh.
And
because you'll find those little like black glowing like
the
orbs.
realm tears. Yeah.
Oh my God! Hey,
Sometimes purple guys come out of that. And
hey,
it's
pro
dangerous.
tip: do not touch the glowing black orbs.
Oh, touch them, but if you die instantly,
You're gonna die instantly.
Just like not all of them. Like there's difficulty levels on them,
Oh.
and some of them you don't even need to fight anything.
But you don't know until you touch them whether
right,
they're...
but you don't lose anything if something comes out and kills you. You just start a checkpoint.
Start again, yeah.
So it's there's no.
Have you fought a Valkyrie?
Oh yeah. Bunch of them.
They're insane.
That was what I was referring to when I said like I was fighting stuff I probably wasn't supposed to fight yet. But I mean, if you're good enough, if you know the patterns, you can do it. It just takes a long time.
I was not willing to dedicate that much time to beat the Valkyries.
I
got one down to like half, and I was like, I fought my ass off to get it down to half.
By the time I was like almost ready to do the final push to the end of the game, I'd beaten 4 of them.
Okay, that's impressive.
And which was fun,
That's great.
I mean, it doesn't really matter
to
because
me, I think they're like things you're supposed to go back and tackle like after you finish the game.
They're supposed to be post game, but I'll say I think it's a testament to the combat system.
Yeah.
That, like if you memorize the patterns and you know what to do, and you have the patience. And you're perfect in some cases. Like you'll get through it.
The skill trees get crazy towards the end too, because it'll introduce a new move, but then it'll give you like 2 variations of that that changes it. And if you start learning how to really utilize those, some of them are governed by certain stats that you have. And even though you can unlock it on the skill tree, they'll have like a bonus ability for that skill that you can't utilize until one of your stats gets to a certain point.
And then sometimes, some of those are real high.
Oh yeah, like really high.
And that kind of digs into that's the incentive in some ways to get some of the really high-end armor, which requires some pretty massive accomplishments and investments and grinding in some cases. I like that there's a big argument online currently of like what's the best armor, what's the best this, what's the best, because it shows that like everybody's got their different play styles.
Yeah.
And there is no clear cut, this is the armor you use.
You can absolutely succeed playing this game in so many different ways.
It's always more, I find it's always been, I've even downgraded my armor sometimes when I like upgraded to a new suit, and I'm like, I don't like how this plays now. The old bonuses were better for me, and I've gone back to like lesser armor.
I've stuck with old armor tons of times where I got new armor that's supposed to be more powerful.
It's
because if you spend
if it fits your style, like it's more valuable that it fits your style than the numbers go up.
If it fit, exactly. Sometimes the numbers wouldn't even go up because I had spent time leveling up that equipment, and so I get this new one, and you can tell it's supposed to be the one that you're supposed to equip. And I compared the numbers, and because I had leveled up my prior armor so well, it was actually better than the new stuff that I got.
Well, I've done stuff where I'd craft a new thing and I'd level it up, and then I'd pull all the enchantments out of my existing armor and put it in the new one and see if how it compared after that. Usually it was better, but sometimes it was very minor, and a lot of times the minor difference was not worth losing the bonuses that were on my old equipment.
Yeah.
But like the enchantments are surprisingly flexible and surprisingly useful if you find the ones that you need for your particular play style. I'm very like they did an amazing amount of work making this thing work for however you want to play it, as long as you kind of understand the essentials. If you want to focus on one thing or the other, to the point that like some of the ultimate armors in the game have like 2 or 3 variants that boost different stats, if you want those or something else. Like. And the other thing, I was like, there's one point where like they do that classic thing where it's like, oh, you have this rare thing, you can make this or you can make that. It's like, oh, what do I want? I wasn't sure what I wanted, and finally I committed. And then I go back, it's like, oh, you can also get the other thing if you spend a whole lot of silver. Yeah, I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, it's great. Like, it's like, you had to make that choice to get the easy one, but if you decide later you want the other one, you can spend a lot of currency in the game to have the other thing, and that's great. Like that, continually gives you options at all times.
And just the pacing of everything is perfect. Like the upgrades that you get, like you never get bored with what you're using before you get something else.
Well, and the other thing, I think the thing that should be looked at very closely, and this will probably be discussed more as time goes on over the course of this year and as the Game of the Year conversations come into play, these characters are not the same people at the end of the game as they were at the beginning. And it's not the usual video game thing where it's like, oh, we have these characters and this is their big moment. This is the big thing that's going to change about them. And so now we have to stretch that character experience over 20 hours. This game is as long as the story needs it to be. There is not a wasted story beat. There's not a wasted narrative idea. It's just every scene, every time it takes control away from you and shows you a cutscene, it matters.
Yep.
Like there's a reason that's happening. There's a thing that's going to change about these characters. They are going to learn something or know something or act some way, or their relationship is going to alter in some way. And it constantly is a meaningful moment in a narrative sense and in a character arc sense and in a story sense. And that is horrendously rare in this medium. In this medium, it's rare in a lot of mediums. Actually, it's rare in Netflix shows too. But they did an amazing job of using the strengths of an interactive medium to tell this story without ever feeling like they're padding it.
Yeah.
And without ever feeling like they're just sort of wasting your time or saying like, oh, we need to be this long. We need to like, now this has to happen. It adheres to its structure, but it takes its time and it takes its characters on this journey that just absolutely works. And you really don't say that much about games in general. And I feel like I almost never say it about AAA productions.
Hardly ever.
Like, I don't know how this happened. I guess Cory Barlog is just one hell of a game director. That's trusted by Sony to do something like this, but like, man, like they turned out. I don't know if anything.
It's a freaking masterpiece.
I don't know if anything can beat this game
This game
this
is a masterpiece, dude.
Yeah.
It is really just a flawless game.
Like right now, as from what we know coming out the rest of the year, the only thing I can think that has a shot against this for me would be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's both because I like the character, because I like the genre, because it's doing a similar sort of merging of action and story that this is doing, and because I trust the developer.
Yeah.
But that is a monumental mountain to climb for Insomniac if they want to turn out something better than this, because this is not quite my game of the generation, but it's number 2.
It's
after The Witcher 3.
It is in that discussion, absolutely. Here's a question I have. So I've been seeing a lot of people, and some people on SIFTD saying, I don't even care, I don't like God of War. Which I think is just a total travesty. Because this, whether you liked past God of War games or not, to me has very little bearing on whether you're going to love this game.
It has nothing to do with it. This is a completely different animal.
And I feel like people can't get over that hump. So my question is, should this have been a new IP?
No.
I mean, look, they did a great job with the story in this.
Yeah, they did. But like so much of the weight this story carries is because Kratos is who Kratos is. Because of you almost need those 5 mindless hack and slash games that came before to inform the character work that happens in this game. And there are literally points in the game where characters call Kratos what people that don't like God of War have called him for years. Like, you're a monster, everyone hates you,
right, yeah.
You're a rage-filled
He has some
beast.
reckoning, yeah.
Like, it's like, and it's like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, they're right.
Yeah.
Like, I've thought that about Kratos too. Kratos was a stupid character. He's a dumb, rawr character. He's a raging badass, kind of like 90s Image Comics kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they take that and they use it, and I don't think
they use that as a tool.
Yeah, I don't think you would have the weight the story carries if you didn't have that, like, just grinding backstory of, like, this guy has been in 5 games that were just the same old, like, mindless hack and slash crap. And I like the game. I mean, I'm not ripping on them in the sense that I think they're bad games. I just, like,
they were fun, but mindless.
They were fun, but
very vapid and
like they were all about the spectacle and the set piece. To the point that I never even got all the way through God of War 3 when it first came out, because it starts with such a big bang with Poseidon and everything, and you've got the fight against Kronos and all this stuff. And at a certain point, it's like I was stuck in this section that was just fighting like cannon fodder guys, and I didn't care, and I just sort of petered out and never turned it back on.
This game also does a great job of building.
Yeah, it never does. This game never does that. And I get it when people say, like, oh, I don't care about God of War. I don't, it's like God of War never did anything to make you care.
You're right.
But this game does. Like, and the fact that they know a lot of people don't care about this character is one of the reasons this story works so well. I don't know where Barlog and crew pulled this out of.
I don't either.
But I mean, it's. I guess if you work with this character that long, you're just like, I got some thoughts, and we're going to write them down, and we're going to make a game about it.
And the reason I compare this to Resident Evil 4 is because kind of the way how I was feeling about Resident Evil leading up to RE4 was kind of exactly how I was feeling about God of War leading up to this game. Mm-hmm. And both games just completely destroyed my expectations of what I thought the game was going to be, and in ways I never imagined that were going to be possible. And then when it was all over, it was just like with RE4. Like, I got to the end of Resident Evil 4, and I was like, I don't want this to end. I want it to just keep going forever. It's just, man, this game is so freaking good, people. If you own a PS4 and have not bought this, and you have the money to buy it, go buy it. Go buy the game. If you don't have the money for it right now, start saving right now, because I can guarantee you, with the exception of maybe Spider-Man, there is not going to be another game better than this one coming out this year. There just isn't.
If there is, we don't know about it yet.
I mean, I've been playing games for like 40-some years now, and this game has left a huge mark.
And I was pretty skeptical going in, especially after all the early, like, crazy 10 out of 10 reviews and all that stuff. I'm like...
But see, this goes back to what I've said about when sites give games 10s out of 10s like they're candy. How do you tell people how good this game is when it gets the same score as something that is nowhere near as good as this game?
What was the last 10 IGN gave before this?
They gave out like 5 or 6 of them last year.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they've gotten really willy-nilly with their 10s. And GameSpot's still pretty stingy.
For me, it's always more important. Like, it was interesting in light of the discussion you had on the show today about whether game reviews matter. Like, individual reviews don't matter to me, really. But when I see like a certain spread of outlets giving something scores that high, I'm like, oh, that must mean something.
I should pay attention to this. Yeah.
Which is really all I can ask.
Yeah.
Of reviews these days. Yeah, like I think I told you before the show started, I've run into a couple of bugs. Also, I've noticed they've been updating the game almost every day.
Yeah, every day you get an update.
Every day you get a little different update. I don't know what they do, but there's something.
Yeah.
I've had a couple things where, like, interactive
Well, actually,
objects.
I did see where they changed something. So one night it was like 3 a.m, and I got to this fight that I just could not win. It was against the Dark Elves, and what was happening was
Those guys are dicks.
They are tough. They're some of the toughest enemies in the game, especially when you first start facing them. You don't really know how to fight them. And I had fought like a couple, and then there was like a semi-boss fight, and then you drop down, and there's like this valley that you have to fight like 8 or 10 of them. And what was happening was I was fighting, they just kept respawning like over and over again. What I needed to do was go and like throw my axe through like those throbbing things in a row. And that night I played that part for like an hour and a half, could not beat it. And I was like, man, this is driving me crazy. I'm like, screw it, I need to go to bed. I go to bed, get up, work on the site for a while, go back to play it, and there's an update. I load it up, I have to fight them once. They don't respawn. They no longer respawn.
I wonder if you were fighting one of those guys that summons them, though, and you managed to kill him early.
No, I had wiped out everybody before, and they would just start dropping down from the sky again. And I was like, how do you beat this? I'm like, I'm so lucky to beat the first 8. Like, literally, I'd used like all my health, had like a couple pixels left on my health bar, and then 8 more dropped in. I'm just like, oh my, it just kept happening over. I fought it like 15 times in a row. Couldn't get through it. The next day, first try. I wipe out the first 8, and no more come, and then I'm able to just stand there and throw the axe and move on.
Yeah, I've only had I have a few things where interactive objects weren't interacting, and usually you just need to kind of leave the immediate area and come back, and it'll work.
It'll reset.
And then once I was in a dungeon, and there was a section where you had to open a big door with a chain down in this hole, and or maybe it was open a chest or something, and you had to fight the guys, and I fought the guys, but one of them ended up falling off the ledge onto the main floor, and I couldn't get down there because like the only way down there was a chain that wasn't down, you kick the chain, and I couldn't interact with anything because I was in combat, and then I fell in a hole with the chest, and I couldn't interact with anything, or even to climb out, because I was still in combat mode, and there was no way to hit the guy down there because he was down below the cliff, so I basically had to reload the checkpoint, so I lost like 5 minutes, but like that's the only technical problems I've run into in the whole thing.
But this game respects your time. There's healthy checkpoints. There's checkpoints mid-boss fights in a lot of cases. I never felt like it was just like messing with me and just wasting my time.
The only things like where I've hit points from was like, oh, that was kind of nonsense, was when I was fighting optional stuff that was above my level. Yeah. But like that's what you get when you do that, you know.
I mean, I really struggled to find hardly any relevant criticism of this game. The only thing that really bothered me through the entire game was one of the blacksmiths. the one blacksmith, the voice acting and the
you,
writing for him, I thought was just terrible.
You didn't like the germaphobe blacksmith?
No, I thought that was so dumb. And the voice acting almost sounded like it was placeholder, and they just kept it in the game, the final version. Like,
I thought he was funny.
Really?
I liked all the voices in this game.
He was the only. Again, that is the only blemish I see in this whole game, and it is gigantic. It is all that, people. It's not people going off the deep end. It is an amazing, amazing video game, and something that everyone who is old enough to play it should play. But here's the other thing too, like, it's a really toned down game. A lot of people were probably turned off by God of War in the past because, it's like disembowelment and all this gore, and like, there's really none of that in this game. It's very tame. Very tame, though.
Well, some of the grab kills are pretty gory. The werewolf ones, in particular.
Yeah.
Which you don't. It's very hard to stun one of the werewolves to the point that you can do that. But when you do, you rip their jaw down to their groin.
Yeah, like, you do the King Kong. Like,
yeah.
Rip the
Although
teeth
a lot of the enemies are made out of rock or whatever, so it's not actually that.
Yeah.
So there's bleeding lava or whatever.
There's some decapitations. Some of the finishers, you'll just chop them.
There is violence, but at no point is there anything like in the old God of War where you slice the centaur
gut
open
and like the intestines fly out.
Where you're choking him to death with his own stomach or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing like it's not like how they took Mortal Kombat and translated the classic fatality style stuff into modern, where like you can clearly someone at NetherRealm is in charge of anatomy.
Right.
Like there's nothing like that. In
like
this
they have a doctor on staff.
Yeah. As opposed to just where the old games where you just like see like 14 femurs and 5 large intestines flying out of a guy. Like the Mortal Kombat games are almost like uncomfortable in that regard now.
They are. Like, I will say, like,
and God of War, this game doesn't do. There's some mild, medium graphic violence, but not on the level of the previous games.
Yeah, I hadn't played a ton of Mortal Kombat X. I had played a little bit of it, but then we were gathering B-roll for the video game violence discussion for Patron Factor, and so I just went to watch like a montage of finishers from Mortal Kombat X. Holy crap, man!
They do. I think they did a great job with it because it's super gory and horrifying. But like, they're horror games to some degree. There.
Dude, there was one fatality where he chops a guy in half and then puts his cigar out on like the stub. Like, it was just, I was like, holy moly. Like, I could see where like a parent would watch that and be like, oh my God, my kid's playing this stuff.
Yeah,
like,
it's M-rated. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing, Mom? Why'd you give him Mortal Kombat?
If there is an AO, that would probably deserve the AO for violence.
It's too cartoonish for that.
I don't think it is. I think it's too realistic.
Well, you cut someone in half and try to have their legs stand up long enough to put a cigar out on them. Like it's like splatter gore movie. It's like how people laugh at like Friday the 13th kills or whatever. There
was no Friday the 13th kill in all the Friday the 13th movies that were as brutal and gory as Mortal Kombat X fatalities.
Only because the effects didn't allow it. But like some of those like old horror movie, like those kind of like more independent horror movies were like Bad Taste and the early Peter Jackson stuff. Like it gets that bad. It's like horror fans laugh at it. It's fun.
I didn't laugh at these. I thought they looked really too realistic. I think they could have used maybe a little bit of an art style or something to.
Nah, I like the way they are. It's no one else is doing that. Like
not anymore.
Well, I'm sure there's probably. We might hear about a new one this year.
Yeah, probably will.
It's about time.
We are due for sure. So, I don't know. You guys have watched us a lot. A lot of people accuse us of being like Debbie Downers, or we're too skeptical, or we're too jaded. This is why. Because when a game like this comes around, you should listen to us, because we don't get hyped about games like this very often. And this is one of them.
It's also more like, if you're hard on things because they can be better.
Right.
And then every once in a while a game comes along that lets you go, see?
Yeah.
They could be this.
Yep,
like
absolutely.
This, this could be what you're playing all the time.
Yeah. I really wish I could just go from this game to another game that's just as good.
Yeah.
It like makes the next couple months look like really dour. It's like, what am I going to play that's going to hold up to this thing? Which is why this weekend I'm going to go back. I'm going to start mopping stuff up and continue playing on, finishing some side missions that I haven't finished. And
there is a lot of post-game content.
Yeah, I finished the game. I did probably 30% of the side missions. The side missions aren't like, hey, here's a hat. Take this hat 100 yards over here and give it to somebody. Mission accomplished. Like they're not like that. Like some of those missions will take you like 100 miles away from where you start the mission, where you go on like a 45-minute trek and then fight a boss and then come back and like.
Well, there's a lot of them are like not even that. I'm more talking about kind of the optional dungeon style things where you find one and you play a little bit and you're like, oh, like I'm not remotely ready for that. Like
the
like
Valkyries. The first time I found a Valkyrie, literally like 2 hits, dead. And I was like, oh, I can see where this is going. I'm gonna have to try this fight a ton of times and perfect everything to beat it. I'm like, I'll come back later. And there's 10 Valkyries? 8? Yeah. And eventually, at a certain point, they mark them on the map, so you can go and track them down really easily. But
you find most of them on your own, I think.
Yeah, but I don't know. I can't give a higher recommendation for a video game than I would give for God of War. To me, it's a masterpiece, and I haven't said that about very many video games. So
now it's time for people to complain that it's only on PlayStation.
Yeah, I think a little bit of the pushback on the game is because it is an exclusive.
Yeah.
I've seen people, like some of the criticisms I've seen people give the game, I'm just like, okay. Like, you must have played like 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I will say that, like, if you're judging this game by the first couple hours, you haven't seen anything.
Anything.
Yeah, you gotta be in for it. Like, and I'm not saying it gets better, because it does get better, but it's like it's still really good. But it's like I feel like there's a lot of people. I've seen a lot of impressions where people are like, well, I played for 2 hours, and I don't see what's so great about it.
It was a big deal.
It's like, well, it's not. It doesn't just like come right up and smack you in the face with it. Like it's got a burn to it. It's got a pacing to it.
Yep.
Like you gotta let it.
But it's very well paced.
Yeah.
Like I was never bored.
But there's people that seem to be like jumping into this and being like, okay, like you have 1 hour to like make me think you're the greatest game of all time.
Yeah.
And like,
but I think people like that just, no matter what, they're never going to admit how good it is. They're just looking for a reason to not like it because they don't want to like it. But look, the one thing I would say is like this is not for kids.
Well, yeah.
You should be an adult before you play this game.
Yeah, you can be a teenager.
But hey, there are a lot of parts of prior God of Wars that aren't in there. I mean, we talked about the gore earlier.
Although I admit, like, if you're not an adult, you might not get some of it.
Yeah.
Like it's. If I was when I was a teenager, I don't think I would have understood very well a lot of the themes that are happening in this game because it's kind of for the older demographic. You know, it's the dadification of video games.
Yeah, you're
like,
right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so there it is, God of War. Certainly my front runner for Game of the Year right now by miles. I haven't played another game this year that's even close. I love Ni no Kuni too, but dude, God of War is up here and Ni no Kuni's like down here, like dust in its shoes. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the year. But for right now, I mean, Game of the Generation, not crazy talk at all.
No.
It's right up there for me. I mean, I think I like this more than The Witcher 3.
I do not.
Yeah.
I just played The Witcher 3 through again for the third time on Xbox One X now that they did the HDR patch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game's still my
it's an amazing
pick for
game.
The whole generation. Does the combat match up to God of War? No, but the world is more interesting to me.
They both have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And for my taste of what I like in games, I like God of War more, and I can see why you like The Witcher more.
But like I've also seen people say, oh, if they do another Witcher, it should have combat like God of War. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't be like that.
It should have better combat.
It should have better combat, but like you can't bring a big open world game's camera down that far and kind of make it because part of the reason God of War's fighting works is because you're behind Kratos all the time.
Yeah.
But that also kind of makes the world kind of the areas bigger and the world smaller. And they definitely have some work to do if they do another Witcher game, or if they do what I think they're going to do, a remake of the first one, because I don't think the first one was particularly playable anymore.
Well, now there are rumors flying around that Cyberpunk's like a first-person game.
Who knows? I don't even have an opinion on that game yet. Like we don't know anything.
How can you?
Yeah,
They haven't shown a squat. But rumors are flying right now that it's first person.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think CD Projekt has done very well in terms of dialogue and writing and world building and sort of like, but I do think they still have a lot to learn about action-based. I mean, I think the combat in Witcher 3 is fine. People will go around
passable.
talking about how it's terrible and it's the worst thing. It's like, you're wrong. Like I don't know what the hell you're trying to prove with that. It's entirely functional, but that's the problem is like in a game that otherwise is totally stellar, the combat is just
Yeah,
functional.
it's the sore thumb that sticks out.
Yeah, whereas like God of War didn't really have anything like that.
No Achilles heel.
Eh.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Epic. Epic can seemingly can't do anything wrong at this point. I mean, Fortnite is just like everything it touches, it just turns to gold. But here is one case where, in my opinion, Epic may be stepping out of bounds a little bit. So we actually talked about this story on GameFace when it first broke, that Epic was suing a 14-year-old kid for cheating in Fortnite. And it wasn't just that he was cheating, it's that he was promoting hack tools on his 3 different YouTube channels the kid had. 14-year-old, he had 3 YouTube channels promoting his
Busy.
promoting industrious.
Yeah.
Promoting his hack tools, trying to make money off his hack tools. So after the story broke, we were kind of like, whoa, he's 14. Like, the mom got involved and was like, hey, like, how can a 14-year-old even consent to your terms of service, blah, blah, blah. And I think ultimately we kind of fell somewhere in the middle. We were like, well, we hate cheaters, but this kid is like 14 and we did dumb stuff when we were 14 years old, blah, blah, blah.
Although I never ran a hacking cheats, I probably wouldn't have been something I did.
I don't think, when I was a kid's age, I don't even know if they existed. So
They did.
It's a whole other
But they were
world.
like BBSs you had to log into and download the files and stuff. It was a much more involved process than going on a YouTube channel and paying $5 or whatever for a cheat engine code.
So we kind of fell in the middle. But I think if you look across the spectrum of the press in general, Epic kind of came out of that initial story break with a black eye. Most outlets were like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't right.
Like, okay, you scared him. Like,
mission accomplished. Yeah. Well, it came out this week that Epic is not backing down one bit against this 14-year-old.
Sounds like they're going to make an example out of him, hell or high water.
Well, here's the thing, though. So, is it going to hurt him, or is it going to hurt his mom and his family?
Going to hurt everyone involved.
It will, because ultimately the money that his mom doesn't have from that fine is going to negatively impact his life forever.
Yeah, well, I think Epic's idea is basically saying, like, yeah, like if you do something like this and your kids do something like this, this is what will happen. The impetus being like, watch your kids and parent your kids and make sure but it's like...
Which I think we both agree with.
Absolutely, but it's like, that ends up with a very creepy scenario where it's like, oh, you got to let your kid playing games online, but do you know if he's selling hack tools that are going to get your finances ruined forever?
If he's elite hacker?
Yeah, and it's like... I don't know. Like, I kind of see both sides on this one, where it's like, yeah, I can understand if he was really that integral in like distributing that kind of thing. Like, you would want to really nail him to discourage that kind of future behavior. But like,
it's not like he was a hacksaw kingpin. Like,
no, but we all
his YouTube channels were pretty small, and
but it's also like they found a target that they can prove was that, and then and then so I read the letter the mother wrote. Talking about how
to the judge,
about how it's like it's Epic's own fault that they couldn't stop him, and actually she said that they couldn't curb his behavior. I'm like, no, it's curb.
No, yeah, and it's your job to curb the behavior.
You got to keep an eye on what your kids are doing. Like, even if it's just sticking your head in once in a while and be like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah, really, literally, just what are you doing?
Like, do you know how many YouTube channels your child has?
Yeah,
like,
you can make that PSA. Screw Schoolhouse Rock. This is like the PSA for like 2018.
It's 2018. Do you know how many YouTube channels your child has? You remember that the 80s thing? It's like, do you know where your child is?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's 12 a.m. or whatever, 11 p.m.
That's funny. Here's my thing, though. So
I remember there was a parody ad of that for X-Men back when I was like very, very young reading comics, and like you'd see them in little ad things. It was a bunch of pictures of kids, like from like a comic book drawings of kids, but it said it's 1982 or 84 or whatever. Do you know what your child is? And like one of them was like with red like paint was written Muty on it, and I didn't know it was an ad, and I was like, what does that mean? And like my cousin's like, oh, it's like a mutant because the kid's a mutant. You don't know who's a mutant and who isn't. I'm like, who's the mutant? Like I didn't realize that like it was like it wasn't just. I didn't realize that X-Men was totally fantasy because I was like 6.
Yeah.
And I was like. And I was like,
you start looking at everybody. You're like,
and he was like explaining it in universe. So for like about a month, I was trying to figure out who was a mutant.
Yeah.
And I miss when you're a kid and everything's a little more magical.
It really is. It'd be nice if you could package that somehow. My point with Epic, though, is I think you're right. I think Epic is trying to send a message to everybody else. But does this really do it? I mean, we're talking about it, but most podcasts aren't talking about it. It's not like it's this huge international story. CNN hasn't picked it up and ran with it.
Also, I think you're doing fine.
Yeah. It seems to be.
He does not seem to have sunk your business.
No, I think you're right. And I think that's another thing. Since that lawsuit started, Fortnite has become this thing that it wasn't back whenever this all started. And it's like at a certain point, I think you've scared the kid. The kid's not going to do it again unless he's a complete idiot.
And
you're not going to convince other people not to do it with this. You're not. People are not going to even know it happened.
Well,
it's
the
not
main
going
thing
to
I
change
think
other
is
people's
if
behavior.
you're going to do this, like, you better be doing this to everyone you find who's doing anything equivalent.
Yeah, is he the only one? I don't think so.
So you better go after everybody, which is going to get legally very costly very quickly.
Yeah.
It might just be simpler to shut these people down, and try to keep an eye on it. And like, especially now that this thing's reached this kind of size, you're never going to stop everything.
No, it's impossible.
It's too much of a target. So I don't know. I mean, it's basically what I said last time. I think was like you're never going to stop cheaters completely, and I appreciate the idea that you want to legally kind of establish some kind of precedent for people who like really you kind of basically. I mean, kids trying to turn it into a business.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference from like someone just logging in and like using a trainer or something to like with an aimbot or something.
Right.
But there's a point at which my main thought would be like. This is such a juicy kind of human interest story. If you push it much further, that like the mainstream outlets are going to pick up on it and be like, a video game publisher that makes this much money per year is suing this child for $40 million.
Whose mom's a single mom
Right.
and works as a secretary and can't like make ends meet, and they're going to fine her like $250,000.
At a certain point, the optics get real ugly.
Right.
And it hasn't happened yet because this story hasn't broken out of the enthusiast press circles. But like. I feel if they keep pushing it and someone picks up on it or tweets it to the right reporter, they could end up not regretting it so much. I don't think it's going to kill Fortnite or anything, but it's just like they're not going to look too pretty.
But I guarantee you that if that happens, Epic will turn tail and completely change its tack towards this. Guaranteed. So why not just do it now? You've made your point. The kid's not going to do it again. The parents who have read this story are going to make sure that their kids are staying in line. You've pretty much accomplished all that you can out of this at this point. And so to me, I just think it's time for Epic to call off the dogs. Look, I don't really like the mom. I don't know her personally, but based upon the stuff that she wrote to the judge, it's like, lady, you're delusional. Like, one. Two, you have no idea what you're talking about. Obviously, you're not engaged with your son's hobbies, or you to understand that what you're saying is completely ridiculous. And three, to try to blame the creator of the video game for her poor parenting skills, I'm not on her side. But there, at a certain point, you just got to be like, okay, enough is enough.
I don't see what Epic's end game is.
I don't either.
To push it.
That's what I'm saying. I think they think their end game is to discourage other people from doing it. But this is not going to do it.
Well, maybe this is still part of it. But like, there's a lot more steps to go before they hit a point where these people would actually have to pay out anything to them.
Yeah.
Which they never could, probably.
They can't afford. Yeah, there's no way that they could.
So, but it is, there is a point to be made that like, one way or the other, they have going to severely financially impact these people's lives.
Ruin their lives financially.
And that's just how it's going to be, apparently. And Epic doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I've been really surprised by this because it has done such a great job with community in pretty much every other way. I mean, look at what it's done with Fortnite. It knows how to manage a community generally.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe Epic is maybe that's literally. I don't know what they're thinking, but maybe that's literally what what's in their head is like, if we ruin these people and anytime anyone else cheats, we're like, look what we did to these guys. Like maybe they think what they're this is gonna.
How do you do that?
It's some weird. It feels like some weird kind of legal brinksmanship sort of like some kind of. It's not even mutually assured destruction. It's like, but it's like we'll risk massively terrible PR in the name of like ruining someone to serve as an example to anybody who might want to do the same thing. And it's just not a tactic you see major corporations take very often.
You know what this reminds me of? Napster. Do you remember back when what was the government agency?
The FCC?
No, there was another one that was going after people for Napster and like fining them like $20,000 per song on the hard drive. And see, when they first started doing that, it was like this. They were really hardcore about it. And you started seeing these stories of like single moms whose kid went and downloaded like a Tone Loc track, and next thing you know...
That's the whole premise of the book Year Zero by Rob Reed, where the premise is that...
A friend of ours.
Yeah, because the broadcast signals like send music and signals out in the universe. The idea is that galactic civilization has basically quarantined us because we're useless, we're terrible creatures, except we're better at music than anyone else in the galaxy, and so everybody like goes into like conniptions of orgasmic bliss when they hear Earth music, and so everybody takes all Earth songs ever and has them on like quantum iPods and stuff. But then like there's a whole thing where they the rules about sharing art in the galactic community are that you have to abide by the laws of the culture that made them. So by our own copyright laws, the entire galaxy owes us more money than exists in the universe. And so there's two factions where one side wants to like resolve the problem, and the other wants to just destroy the planet so they don't owe us all the money in existence anymore. And that's the premise of the book, and it could only be written by a tech guy who lived some of that back in the old days.
Because he started Rhapsody.
He started Listen.com and all these like streaming things way back in the day. Year Zero by Rob Reed. It's a good read. It's entirely about how ridiculous that kind of like weird monetary penalization for this sort of like thing is.
And that's what I was getting at. What happened was when it first started, you saw these horror stories on TV. The single mom that owes $500,000 or whatever.
And actually, I worked.
And the public was like, "Oh no, no,
that's ridiculous."
And eventually, I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. It was like the IRL or something like that did all this, or the IRA, I think it was.
Internal Revenue Agency?
No, it was like the RIA or something was the agency.
I can't remember.
Anyway, the pushback from the public was like, "Oh no, you can't do this," and they stopped. They stopped going after people for downloading music illegally, and then Spotify came along and streaming and YouTube. And
at the time, I was working at a gym, and that was where the founder of Napster went to work out. And so periodically he'd show up with the shirt on. I'm like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Ugh."
Yeah, he should have sold when he had the chance. He's just like Kevin Rose, like totally. We're like, "Nope, I'm not selling. I can get way more than that."
Yeah, the old don't hold on to your dig.coms until it's too late, everyone.
Man, I know he said he didn't care then, but I bet you he cares now. Probably. That's a tough pill to swallow, because he ended up selling it for like $2 or $3 million.
Yeah, not.
And he had offers for like 250 to 300 million, and said no.
Yeah.
Kevin Rose, by the way, is a friend of ours from Tech TV and G4. He was one of the hosts on the Screensavers.
The Dark Tipper.
Yeah.
He would probably get along with his kid just fine, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll see. I would not be surprised, though, if this story starts to pick up some momentum and maybe touches a couple mainstream outlets that Epic
if they
suddenly
keep pushing
is
it, I feel like someone's... I mean, this is a great little, if I was like kind of a mainstream news reporter, like I would be like, "Oh my God, what a great..." It's like you've got a kid behaving weird and badly on the internet. You've got the evils of children playing video games. You've got a single mother. You've got that single mother being ruined by corporate interests.
You've got Fortnite, which is like the biggest story.
Biggest story of the game. Yeah, it's like 6 different ways this thing is gold.
While you're saying this, somebody on this stream right now is typing out a tweet to CNN like...
Or hell,
you should check into this.
Send it to John Oliver. John Oliver would talk about this.
He absolutely would. So I hope Epic comes to its senses. It is doing too well right now to get bogged down with something like this. Like, it's made its point. I think everybody gets it.
Yeah, it feels like Scrooge McDuck arguing with someone over a quarter.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like analogy. Give it a rest, guys. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Nintendo. Nintendo is absolutely, positively on fire. It released its first quarter financials yesterday. The Switch is about 2 million units. It already destroyed the Wii U. It's about 2 million units away from beating the GameCube in 1 year. It's about
2 million?
Well, GameCube ended up, depending on who you talk to, it ended up selling 20 to 23 million. Somewhere
really?
in that
I thought
range.
It was closer to 30.
No, The N64 was at 32 million. It's going to pass that probably before it is. by 2 years, it will have sold better than the N64 and the SNES.
I don't think the Super Nintendo sold a lot.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, it did.
Nope. You will be shocked.
I just looked at the rankings of things, and the Super Nintendo is more than that.
It's not. It's like
Because
30, it's like 36 or 38.
No, it outsold the Genesis. It was the Genesis was less than I thought, but like that was why the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube were considered like not failures but underperforming because they didn't match what the Super Nintendo did. The Super Nintendo sold like crazy.
I think I thought that as well, and all the data I looked at on this story, that is not the case. I mean, it did sell well, but the standard back then was way different, Matt. Like, to sell 30 million consoles back then, that was huge. That's just not how the market is now, though. I don't know. The stories that I read...
Super Nintendo sold 49 million. So that's a ways.
Where'd you get that data from?
Wikipedia. Their list of all console sales.
Huh.
So
I was subject to some fake news this week, apparently, or some bad reporting.
You were right about GameCube, though. GameCube is 21.7 million. So yeah, the Switch is about to pass the GameCube and the original Xbox.
In a year.
And it's not far off from the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Xbox One is estimated 25 to 30.
Yeah.
So by the end of this fiscal year, I would say it's going to beat it. Yeah, Nintendo 64 is 32 million. I don't know if it can catch 50.
So how does the data right for the other two consoles, but they had it wrong for the SNES in the article?
I don't know. This says Super Nintendo is 49 million and the Nintendo Entertainment System was 61.9. And then, of course, the 3DS and the Game Boys are the ones you got to really come at. Game Boy Advance, 81.5 million.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, one of the questions on Pachter recently was, is the Switch going to make it to 200 million?
No.
Somebody seemed to think some Japanese analyst said it would hit that. It'll never happen.
Well, if it continues on the pace that it's at, sure, but nothing does that. Like, things happen, you know.
Super Mario Odyssey, the best-selling 3D Mario ever.
Outsold Zelda, as I predicted it would, in a much shorter amount of time.
3 months.
I remember you were a little skeptical about that, but never doubt the Mario.
But that's because 3D Marios have not sold that as well as Zelda in the past.
Right, but Mario is king. Mario will always be king.
The 2D Marios always sell amazing.
Yeah.
3D, people, they sell well, but not like the 2D stuff. But this one is selling as well as... Maybe it's because there isn't a 2D Mario available for the Switch yet.
That could be.
Whereas all Nintendo's other consoles, generally, a 2D version came before a 3D version ever showed up. N64, obviously not the case. Mm-hmm. Did the N64 ever get a 2D Mario?
No.
I don't think it did, yeah.
No. The 2D Mario thing started with the new Super Mario Brothers on the DS.
Yeah.
And then I think the first like 2D Mario game of note on consoles since the Super Nintendo was New Super Mario Brothers Wii. So it was a long, long time. They were hammering that 3D, and like the Mario 64 obviously did very, very well, but I think Mario Sunshine went off the rails a little bit, and I think going back to the 2D, the new Super Mario Brothers version, which is the increasingly ironically named New Super Mario Brothers subline. I think that it was really familiar. It was exactly what people remembered. It was what they wanted to play. It worked well on the sideways Wiimotes, so you didn't need a whole bunch of other controllers. Everybody could play together and hate each other by bouncing off each other's heads, trying to beat a boss when everybody's wasting their lives, and you do not respawn. I will beat him, and then we will continue playing. They should have called that divorce mode, really, the co-op mode on that game. So I can understand. And then Galaxy, I feel like, while I think Galaxy is one of the best Mario games ever made, like I get that it's kind of more for us.
It did start to bring people back to 3D Mario a little bit.
Also because it was just like it was a little purer, I think, than Sunshine was.
No, it was, absolutely. It was less gimmicky.
And I think Odyssey was the right game at the right time for Mario in this case. And also, let's not forget the number 2 selling game on the Switch is Mario Kart.
Right. Mario Kart 8. That's after it sold like 14 million on the Wii U. It sold almost 1-to-1 on the Wii U.
Yeah. And then, like, if you factor in the Wii U sales for Zelda, it's about tied with Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
But I think it sold about 2 million, they said, on Wii U, which is pretty good for that system.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Mario was definitely the king of the Switch holiday season.
Everything's doing well though. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has sold 1 million. which I was surprised to see.
I mean, I think that's makes it the best-selling game in that series, which is a shame. But
yeah, because it's the worst of all the games in that series.
And I was like, I'm interested to see how they go forward with that, because like I wonder if they'll take the lesson that like, oh, there's a market here for these sort of big, sprawling, open-world kind of epic RPGs, or will they be like, hey, the boobs sold, let's like double down on the anime bullshit?
It's possible.
I don't know, because that really took me out of it.
Fire Emblem Warriors sold 1 million copies.
Well, to some degree, you're also sort of dealing with like early schedule library doldrums. I would be very interested.
Beggars can't be choosers. Yeah.
Nowhere on this list was Skyrim.
No.
I noticed.
No. There's really no third-party stuff.
No. And whereas no third-party stuff, but it's interesting to note that like no one has bragged about Skyrim sales at all. Whereas like every other day you hear some story about how some indie game from 5 years ago, 3 years ago came out on the Switch and it's the best, like in a month it sold more than we have on PC in like 3 years. You know? Like you get these success stories of these ancient, by gaming terms, indie games coming out and selling extraordinarily well on the Switch, and Skyrim has been running silent, which makes me wonder how well that thing did. Although part of the problem obviously is like these indie games cost $15 and Skyrim is $60.
Yeah.
Bethesda's got some balls asking full price for some of these. Like, I mean, the $60 for the Switch versions of Doom and Skyrim are a little much to me. As is charging $60 for the VR version of Skyrim, especially if you already have Skyrim.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you already own Skyrim
$15
on a platform, that should be an upgrade.
Absolutely, I agree.
So that I think the price is holding them back.
Yeah.
And then what was that Kirby thing? You see that Kirby thing?
Kirby's also sold over 1 million
Kirby
already,
was like
and it just came out.
The highest. Well, what was it? It was something like revenue-wise. So literally the amount of money made. I think if I'm remembering right, the revenue of Star Allies 90% higher than the last best revenue Kirby game, which was from 2002. Now the 2002 one sold for $30 and the new one's for $60. So part of that is just they're making more revenue off of each copy sold because it's double the price, but it still indicates a massive leap in how many units were sold regardless.
Everything that you put out on Switch is just coming up aces.
Everything Nintendo puts out.
Yeah.
So which is the purpose of a Nintendo system, obviously.
Yeah. But in the midst of all this success, the new CEO, who hardly knew you, I don't even really know his name still, has stepped down.
Sure.
I mean, you're looking at, what, a year and... Well, no, it's
Go out on top, I guess.
It's been more than that, but... When did Iwata pass away?
Was that 2015?
Yeah, it's been 2.5 years probably.
Something like that, yeah.
He didn't keep the job long.
No.
And in the midst of that, he brought Nintendo out of the doldrums. I mean, people will say, oh, it was Iwata's idea or whatever.
Yeah, what was the plan that Iwata left in place? Like, I don't know if we'll ever know that.
I don't know if I believe that or not, but...
I mean, I'm sure they had an idea what they were doing.
Yeah.
But, like...
You still have to go out and execute on that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not just like, hey, let's make a console and a hybrid.
It was the CEO, clearly, who, it took long enough, but they fixed their production pipeline problems. And
that was not Iwata.
That is not Iwata. That was the new guy, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Nope.
I mean...
You're bucking against decades of tradition.
Yeah, and we knew they're capable of it, obviously, but you still have to motivate and get those gears turning, and he did it, and I have to say that was a well done. I mean, like, people talk about how, like, that was weird. I remember the Switch was
Is his name Kimishima?
Maybe, I can't remember. But
I mean, think about that. We don't even know his name.
But you remember
gone.
Sales of the Switch in February were the third place.
Yeah.
And people were saying, like, it's because there's product constraint. There's not enough Switch.
Yeah.
No, Switch is everywhere.
They are,
like, you can go anywhere and get one. And, like, I'm not, that's a good thing. Like,
it is, absolutely.
Like, they've.
But if you're a fan rooting for Nintendo, you don't want to hear
that. Right,
that.
you want an excuse for that. But, like, there is no excuse because there was nothing to buy.
Right.
And, like, now it's starting to warm up. I think you're going to see some good sales from the Switch in April because of Labo. That's the other thing about is, like, I haven't seen barely anyone talking about Labo in the wake of the launch, but I feel like that doesn't necessarily matter because it's not for our circles of people that would be discussing. I feel like there's
like zero discussion.
There's going to be but I feel
like
like most of the people that bought Labo do not go on Twitter a lot. You know what I mean?
No, you're right.
Like it's like I think the sales.
They don't have a cell phone yet.
The sales, but I also mean the parents. I mean the parents that bought it.
Yeah, they don't have time for social media.
I think the sales of Labo are going to surprise some people.
Well, it's going to be a big money generator because it's $80 some instead of just $60. So that's going to tack some revenue onto every sale.
Well, no, they can't cause that much to make. So
Yeah.
like,
why do you think the president, we don't know if he was forced out or he stepped down or whatever, but why do you think I mean, look, it's like you're surfing all day. And all day you're paddling, you can't catch a wave, and then all of a sudden this big monster comes, and you paddle your ass off, and you get up, and you're just on the top of that wave, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be the wave of my life, and then you just quit. Like, that just seems insane.
I don't know what the plan is there.
I mean, the guy that is taking his place is much younger. I don't know if Nintendo's maybe trying to get away, because, I mean, truth be told, Nintendo has traditionally been a company that promoted from within, and promoted from within its senior leaders. And a lot of times those senior leaders would ride it out. Iwata, when he was hired to lead the way, was young by Nintendo standards. I mean, think about Yamauchi before him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they basically had to, like, move him out after he died. Like, I think he may have died at his desk at Nintendo. I mean, that's how hardcore he was and how long he stuck around. So it's been interesting to watch this shift away. Iwata was kind of the first one, and they kind of went back, and now they're going back to a younger guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've gotten a lot of criticism over the years for, like, you know...
Not getting it?
They're not getting it, that their board is all over 65, that there's not enough, like, young blood happening to kind of keep on top of things, and maybe they're taking that to heart, and maybe... We don't know what happened internally. Like, who knows what it took to get the Switch to be what it is. And, you know, maybe there was... You know, you don't know if there's warring camps in a company. It's like, this isn't going to work, this is going to work. Who knows if there were, you know, we don't know, like, who was involved in the Wii U, and, like, we don't know what the corporate politics are. We have no idea why this guy would step down, or if maybe he's stepping down for personal reasons.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing about Nintendo, is it's so tight-lipped. It is a tight ship, and we'll never know why he left.
But if we move forward over the next year or two, and we start to see that Nintendo's making some crazy, interesting moves that are paying off for them, and that seem to be the result of this guy, this new guy coming in, like, well, I guess we will know to some degree. We'll at least know that they found a guy with some ideas that could compete with what Iwata had given them over the years.
It's hard to top the last 12 months.
It is.
I mean,
but
that guy moving into that job, he's like, man, I got
it's way more important to continue.
Gig.
It's way more important to continue, because Nintendo's history is, oh, look, this thing did really well. Oh, we're just going to not do anything to capitalize on that.
Right. Yeah. Look at the Wii.
That happens all the time.
It was like the biggest video game console ever.
Look at
it fizzled out in like 24 months.
Look at the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
The Nintendo 64 sold half of what that thing sold.
Yeah.
You know, and no one could have predicted that, but they were making the right moves in terms of what kind of hardware they were after. But they, you know, dropped the ball on the third-party support and kind of having to pay for people to use cartridges and stuff, which is happening a little bit with the Switch again. But, like, you've got the digital.
But then they tried to fix that with GameCube, and it did even worse.
Yep.
But again, it was proprietary
media.
I mean, it was a disc.
I mean,
but
we're
it was
there
this
again.
Mini disc.
We're there again with the Switch, and you're already running into stuff. We're like, what's the thing coming up that they announced was going to have a Wolfenstein requires a download to work, which is like. That's a problem. I mean...
Well, it's even a bigger problem because the on-console storage is so minimal. It's a joke. But, I mean, everything's coming up roses for Nintendo right now.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're not in a position like the Vita was, where not only did you have to buy separate storage memory, but the storage memory was owned by Sony in a proprietary format they wanted $70 for.
Yeah.
You know, at least you can get a cheap SD card.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So
but you have to buy one.
Yeah, but, like, you know... That's like the old days. You had to buy memory cards for everything.
Yeah, to me there's a big difference, though, in buying a memory card to hold your saves versus having to buy a card so that you can actually play video games.
Yeah, if you're not saving back in the day, you weren't playing the video game either.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit there and play Final Fantasy VII in one sitting.
Yeah.
Trust nobody unplugs your damn console.
I'm sure someone's done that.
Oh, absolutely, of course. But, like, ideally, as a general consumer, that's probably not your plan.
Yeah.
Although I know people that try to do that.
It's insane.
And then someone trips over the cord, and, like, you lose 60 hours of gameplay, and, like...
Yeah. But, again, you know, I never would have seen this coming with Switch. It's just been a smash hit. Slowed down a little, it seems like, of late, but as soon as some games start coming out, I think it'll pick right back up. I think people still have a thirst for the hardware and want it. So I think everything's looking good.
I still think their estimate for the end of fiscal year for hardware is 20 million, and they've already sold 18. So either they're really lowballing or they're expecting the system sales to slow down significantly. Whereas their target for software is 100 million, which is high but eminently doable considering how things are selling so far.
Yeah.
So Nintendo seems to have a pretty realistic view of how they're.
It always does
they're
with its
doing moving
financials.
forward.
Its financial reports, it's not just a bunch of blowing smoke up people's butts. Like, I remember back when the Wii was thriving, and they would have their financial reports, and you'd read the quotes, you're like, what? Like, you're dominating right now. But they were realistic, almost pessimistic. And I wonder if, like, that sort of corporate culture ultimately fed into at least partly of why Nintendo has failed to sustain success when it has a hot product out of the gate.
Well, part of the problem, I think, the Wii is a weird anomaly, just in the sense that it has almost no relevance to anything that came after it.
Yeah.
Because so many people that bought that system are not customers.
Yeah.
They're just...
And never will be again, and weren't before then.
Yeah, they wanted a box that played Wii Sports or Wii Play.
Yeah.
And they were never going to buy Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
They are not the people that are going to make the Switch a success. And Nintendo, to be fair, has realized they don't seem to think... They're not expecting this thing to hit 100 million in the time the Wii did. Yeah. I don't think. But, like, they're expecting it to be a competitor again, which is certainly more than you can say for the last few systems outside of the Wii.
Absolutely.
Although I still have...
I would argue that it wasn't really a competitor either.
No, I think Nintendo...
For anything.
Nintendo argued that in a positive sense.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we think we're our own thing. It's like, yeah, clearly, because no one who thought they were competing with anyone would make Wii music.
Because I think that kind of hurt them in the end, though.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Certainly hurt them in software sales because they were trying to sell toys and people wanted games.
That's another thing Nintendo fans don't like to hear.
Yeah.
Don't call them a toy maker.
Well, they're card makers when it comes down to it.
I tell you, it's funny. It's been funny because on Pachter Factor, we've had Marcus on for the last several episodes, and the last one actually just went up this morning. So we did finish the 5-episode run. And a lot of people are being introduced to Marcus for the first time ever on YouTube. You know, they were like 5 whenever GT was like kicking butt or whatever, and they're just like, what? Oh my God. Like, they're not used to having somebody just tell it like it is and just drop the truth bomb on them.
It's a lot harder to take the truth when it comes from a Welshman.
Yeah,
that much.
I've really enjoyed screening the comments on YouTube over the last like 3 or 4 weeks. Like,
also, like on a boat with Pachter, he's going to be even like more direct. Yeah, it's like he's in the perfect environment.
Well, they're also drunk.
Right.
I mean, as every episode has gone on, they've become more and more intoxicated. And Marcus, like the first episode, he hardly said anything. Second one, he talked a little bit. Third one, it was just like it's on. And by the 3rd, 4th, 5th episode, now he's Marcus. He's like who he really is. And like people are like, "I does not compute. Where is my influencer who will tell me everything is okay?" Like, it's so freaking bizarre, dude. But it's been fun and interesting.
It's just going to be interesting to see kind of where they move forward, because like, there's kind of the audience that is like weirdly insistent that everything multi-platform should be on the Switch.
Yeah.
When like the Switch clearly can't do that.
It's just been funny watching the Nintendo fanboys rise up again.
Yeah.
After being beaten down, now they're all like, I am the champion.
But even in this scenario, they still have that weird persecution complex about it. And like,
so funny.
The last time a Nintendo system was like on even keel with like other the other systems multi-platform releases was the GameCube.
Yeah. You're always playing second fiddle on Nintendo.
Yeah, and even then you kind of have the problem with the disc size, literal disc size.
Well, yeah, because they compress like the voice acting on the games, or they cut stuff out of the game. It's crazy.
Not tops.
Nope.
But like. And now you're kind of in that same position where it's like, we can't cram this thing on. And like sometimes you'll get like a miracle like Doom. But at the same time, you get people saying like, oh, we should, Fallout 4 announcement at E3. And it's like, that thing barely ran on the PS4.
Yeah.
Like, you think you can cram that onto the Switch?
They did get Skyrim to work on it. I don't even know how
Skyrim's an old game.
Skyrim's
7 years old.
I'm still surprised they got it to work.
It's running at a very low rate. It's like Doom. Doom runs at like 600p or something. And it runs at like 25 frames a second. It's like, I mean,
it's not all about visuals.
It's fine on a tiny little screen.
It's a fun game. And
sure, but like, you got to start giving me stuff that I can't play in a superior form on another platform.
Third party still a big X factor for Switch.
Yeah.
Still.
I mean, that's the problem with the indie stuff for me too. It's like I already own that on a PC. Yeah. I don't need it on a Switch. I don't need to pay full price from 3 years ago for a game I've already finished on a Switch.
This E3 will determine it, because at this point, publishers have had plenty of time to see how big Switch is. And if they don't show new games for Switch at this E3, they're just simply not coming.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, this is I mean, it's 20 years in the making. This kind of attitude, everyone but Ubisoft. Ubisoft obviously is different.
Always been
they've always been a supporter of Nintendo. But like people like EA and Activision sort of have this attitude of like, well, yeah, we see that Nintendo system is selling very well, but we don't think that our games are going to sell on it. And you kind of get that dichotomy between like, well, the history kind of says they're right, but what if they're not right this time? They should try it. But like corporate wisdom does not match up with the corporate was like, well, we're making money fine. We don't want to take this risk and take another bath on another Nintendo system. So we're just going to sit back and not do that. Maybe we'll release a crappy version of FIFA and see how that does.
That's what they did.
Which is, yeah. And it's not like EA doesn't. I mean, EA is doing the same thing with VR. You know, there's like, sure, it's doing it's doing better than you thought, but like, are we gonna make money on it? I guess we'll never know. You know, like, it's they're playing it very safe in this world where one major release misstep can cost you part of your company.
Yeah.
And I think it's reasonable to say that like you're not going to cram Anthem onto the thing. So that's just not part of their business model right now. And
but it should be.
Maybe once the online is up and running, which I think is why Dark Souls got delayed for the Switch.
I'm sure
they had the online because like no one seems to bring that up, but it's like it seemed to be running fine on like kind of the demo stuff they were doing. So like what's the X factor? And also something that has been a problem with other versions of the game over the years
past, yeah.
is the online. And like the fact that it's being delayed till closer to the supposed September, online service infrastructure
it makes
launch
too much sense.
Can't be a coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And remember, mid-September is still technically summer.
That's right. That's true.
So
So we'll see, but so far, all coming up roses for Nintendo. I think they are going to get to a breaking point here pretty soon.
Yeah, but once the online infrastructure is in place to sell people loot boxes, we'll see what people do.
Yep.
We'll see what they do. If Belgium doesn't make it illegal everywhere before then.
Lots of countries are starting to do that, though. Well, Belgium's just one of like 4 now that's done it.
Who? All I saw was Belgium.
No, actually, I think there's 3 countries that have done it so far. I can't remember what they were, though.
I enjoyed that they declared it gambling, except not Battlefront 2.
A game that like they liked or something.
Well, no, it's because when the case was heard, EA had already pulled the boxes out of it, so it didn't count. It's like I just find it funny that the game that caused all this furor got away.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, we pulled them. It's not in there. It's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Well, they were smart and they pulled them.
But the solution,
a lot of other
but of course,
publishers have
the outcome of that is going to be is like, I think it was like Overwatch and Counter-Strike and one other that I can't remember. But the result of that is they're just not going to sell those games in Belgium.
Right.
Like it's not going to change.
It's just going to piss off the consumers.
Yeah. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Belgians want their hats. Damn it! In Team Fortress 2.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Destiny 2. Just this week, the second big expansion for Destiny 2 was unveiled. First with a live stream, an hour-long live stream, and then with a follow-up cinematic trailer, prologue trailer. Mm-hmm. Going back to Mars.
Going back to college.
I actually put together a little bit of data about Warmind. New gear, including exotic weapons and armor.
Shocking.
An endgame event activity that is a take on Horde mode, which is kind of interesting.
Which is the closest thing we could get to Battle Royale mode.
Yeah, it's called Escalation Protocol.
Interesting.
Yeah, you face off against waves of Hive enemies. Right. The Hive apparently is the big enemy in this expansion.
The Hive very much.
I'm not a huge fan either. I don't hate them as much as the Flood, but...
I mean, they are the Flood.
They are. I mean, but I don't hate them
every
as much.
race in Destiny has a Halo equivalent.
Absolutely. The Leviathan gets a new raid lair, and on the PS4 you get some timed exclusive content in the form of a strike and armor for each class. All the content coincides with the launch of Season 3 and its accompanying update on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It will make changes to exotic weapons and introduce crucible rankings and private matches, which is pretty good. All that will be free, whereas Warmind will cost $20 here and €17. All the new Crucible maps will be free for everybody, so nobody has to pay any money for those. Yeah.
They can be taught.
I mean, look, yeah, I mean, that's a lesson that a lot of developers have had, or publishers have had to learn. Like, keeping maps away from people is generally not a good idea.
Yeah, you'd think that would be a no-brainer.
Call of Duty manages to get away with it only because it's Call of Duty. But otherwise, it's generally a really dumb tactic. You're just splitting up your user base. And look, even in Call of Duty, I hate it. It's like, even sometimes when I have the maps, it bothers me because I'll be playing with somebody and then a map will load up that they don't have and they get dropped off the game. And I'm like, well, this isn't good for me either. Like, and I paid for it. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea that Bungie has decided to at least make those free. What are your impressions of Warmind based upon what we know so far? Yeah.
Like
Will it get you to go back and play?
Maybe. I'm gonna have to go look and see if I bought the version of Destiny 2 that came with a season pass. That's gonna be the deciding factor. Because if I already paid for it, sure, I'll play it.
I have still never done a strike.
I can't remember the last time I logged into Destiny 2. It must be like October.
You were talking last week about the difficult decisions you need to make when you need to download games, even on PS4 we have a terabyte or whatever, and here we have our Wiis that have like a handful of gigs. One of the games that's always right there on the edge for me on that chopping block has been Destiny 2.
I haven't deleted Destiny 2 yet, but only because I don't want to re-download everything if I decide to play it at some point. But
Isn't it funny, like the mental gymnastics you go through when you have to figure out what game to delete? Like when I installed God of War, I made the decision. I cut Yakuza 6. I was like, I don't see myself going back to that, even though it really just now came out. I probably should have deleted Ni no Kuni too. I finished that. I'm not going to go back and play that. But it's funny the things that you think of and how you kind of barter and bargain with yourself, trying to figure out which one you want to delete. So, in your opinion, this doesn't pique your interest at all?
Not much. I mean, it's coming out at probably a time when there's not going to be much else to play.
It's May 10th, I believe.
Yeah, so like I'll probably will play it. It's certainly not something that I'm marking on my calendar as like, oh my god, I can't wait. Like,
yeah. Is anybody in that camp with Destiny 2 at this point?
I don't know. Everyone, I mean, I know people that played a lot, even more Destiny 2 than I did, and like still did the raid stuff and stuff. But they all are like weirdly cynical and mean about the game. Like there's like, like they play. It's like they play it out of with a grudge almost.
Yeah.
So like, they're like, oh, what stupid thing? I mean, I think one of the forums I posted on, I think the Destiny thread is titled Destiny 2. What did Bungie fuck up today? And like, it's just it's just like there's like this cynicism of like it's even these people. I mean, these are not like hardcore crazy like this is all I do all day. These are people are parents and they're normal kind of middle-aged people or like people in their 30s to 40s. But even they have this sort of mentality of like it's us against Bungie.
Yeah.
It's like what's Bungie gonna screw up and mess up this time? And like they're dedicated. One guy has a maxed out character of all three classes with maxed out exotic armor, everything of all four. I mean, he took everything. He grinded to maximum on all three classes and all of their armors for all different occasions of each of the three different like elements. Like he's outfitted for anything that could possibly happen in the game, and he's like,
no wonder he's passive aggressive.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, I'll play it. It's like, but really?
Oh, he's gonna play it.
But it's just like it's like they do it out of like a obligation.
An obligation, yeah.
And
it's like I've played it so much, I need to play it more.
And I just don't feel that way about it. I finished the story and played some of the extra, the post game stuff, and I don't think I ever did the raid, but
I think there's a certain point you get at when you play a game so much that it kind of becomes your identity.
Sort of.
It becomes like your gamer identity. It's like he's a Destiny player, and those people eventually say to themselves, "I'm a Destiny player."
I'm a pepper. Don't you want to be a pepper too?
Yeah, I've never fallen into that camp really. I mean, I guess maybe at a certain point, other people would have called me like a shooter guy.
I mean, I could, I guess, be, but like, I have to keep up with stuff so much that like
we don't have time to fixate on any one thing.
Yeah, I can't sit there and just play Destiny forever. I mean, I'm kind of interested to see like if the day ever comes where I don't have to keep up on game releases as a professional for professional reasons. Would I settle on one or two things and just play those forever? I don't think I would. I think I'm always after the next
I mean, I've been doing this so long. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
I enjoy all genres. I enjoy all platforms. I mean, look, there may be some day when I'm like 70 or whatever, and I'm living off my Social Security check, if that even exists whenever I'm 70. And I have to make a choice between just buying like one console instead of buying all of them. I could see maybe that day coming a long ways from now. But as far as changing my behavior, my purchase patterns, and the games that I play, I just don't see it. It's what I enjoy as a person who plays games.
We're the people that the current publishers hate because we won't buy into the games as a service model.
No,
not because I reject it as like some kind of like ethical thing or consumer rights thing, but because I just don't want to play your game that long.
Yeah.
I don't want to play For Honor for 1,000 hours.
Well, it's funny because I thought at first you were going to say, I can't play your game that long. And then I was like thinking to myself, well, I'm going to say, I don't want to. And then you said, you don't want to either.
No, I just don't want to play the same thing that long.
Me either.
There are a few things I play a lot. You know, obviously, I finished.
You play The Witcher a lot.
Finished The Witcher 3 times. Like that's like 300 something hours.
Yeah.
But like that's extraordinarily rare. And one of the things that I like about The Witcher 3 is I don't have to deal with anybody else in it.
Right.
Like,
which with games as a service,
right?
You almost always do.
Instant you introduce other players, you are drastically lowering the odds that I'm going to stay with you that long.
Yeah.
So I like Destiny 2 in part because it lets me play a lot of stuff without other people. But when it hits the point where I got to start coordinating schedules with other people, it's easier to just pull up something else.
I think you brought up a very good point, though, and that is, one, May 10th is about 2 weeks away. And I guarantee you at that point, I'm probably going to have very little to play.
Yeah. What else are we going to talk about that week?
And I may very well go and play.
Assuming we're on the air at
right.
that point.
Who knows? Maybe doing a show from the bus stop or something. They have internet at the bus stop.
Well, we're not homeless. Like we can.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. I feel like Destiny 2 has not had the longevity of the first game, even though it's better than the first game in pretty much every way. It just seems like the fall off for the community for this has been far more drastic. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are on the community or anything like that, but it certainly doesn't seem to have held the mind share.
Right.
Nobody talks about it except the few people I know who are like dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Just like I know the same 3 people who play Sea of Thieves every night.
Right.
You know? But it's like, I felt like there was a lot more sort of like interest and chatter about Destiny 1 in general as it went along than there has been with Destiny 2.
I think maybe people were a little more forgiving with the first Destiny.
Maybe.
So like, yeah, it's like your first try at this. We'll be a part of the team and we'll get it there together. And then with the second one, they're just like, oh no. Like,
well, I think they blew a whole bunch of goodwill with that first like kind of medium uptate, you know, kind of like half update where like they took some stuff away from the people who didn't pay for the update, and messing with the balance changes that were just kind of designed to punish people. Like I think they did themselves no favors in the wake of the launch.
Yeah.
And it's hard to recover from that.
It is, especially with all these other games as a service out there, and Fortnite taking over and becoming huge, and you have Overwatch still. And
clearly,
gigantic.
Destiny is not designed to be a battle royale sort of thing. So
yeah,
I'll bet you I can tell
Destiny
you.
3.
Destiny 3.
It's coming.
Royal battle.
Yeah. Well, I guess you saw this week that now the rumors are flying that Black Ops 4 is coming to Switch, but only as a battle royale mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really tipping your hand.
Yeah. Again, just a rumor. That's not fact, so don't quote me on that one. But that's been swirling around over the last week. Is that
I think rumors about what battle royale mode of what thing will be on what platform is going to be constant for the next couple of years.
Because every game's going to have it.
Yeah.
But with Switch, they're saying that that's all it's going to have.
Yeah, 3 guesses what the Anthem developers are working on right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can we make this happen? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. As long as you have a game where guns are shot,
yeah,
you can make it happen.
Or even
or
then,
it just has a weapon.
I would like to see them, For Honor, try a battle royale mode.
Yeah. Like a melee-based battle royale. That would make it more like the Japanese film, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they all pretty much had melee weapons. A couple people had projectile weapons, but for the most part, they all had
You could reenact Ron in that pretty well.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Battletech. Or maybe a better way to describe it would be XCOM with mechs.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a turn-based strategy game.
A little more to it, yeah. Polite robots?
Yeah, because they're taking turns.
Oh, okay. Sigh. So okay, full disclosure on this one, I have played one mission of this game. And the reason for that is, I think it's actually this mission, if I'm not mistaken.
This is the opening of the game.
Yeah. So at the end of this mission, is it this one? No, it's not. This is a different mission. So it was the very first thing.
Oh, so this is like the first
It's
legit
like first
mission.
mission. I think I'm talking about the tutorial mission.
Right.
So at the end of that, you're basically escorting this royal personage in her own mech, and in the middle of the mission, a coup occurs, and you have to fight off some traitors, and a little story happens, and at the end of it, you have to have her run her mech into like this safe zone that she'll get on an escape ship and fly away. The problem is that when it goes to that part, the only character you can move is her to get her onto the ship. And one of my guys at the end of the battle was standing in the canyon with the path to the ship is. So she couldn't get around his mech to get to the ship, and he couldn't move because I can't move the other two guys on my team. So basically, they're like, "Oh, we got to start the mission over." And I'm like, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to turn you off and go play God of War." So I only played like one mission of this, but I'm a big Battletech fan.
I think probably the vast majority of older players are Battletech
Yeah, well,
fans.
I never played the pen and paper game much, but I played Mech Warrior, the kind of the simulator thing, and I remember in the old magazines in the late '80s, out in Chicago or in the early '90s maybe, they had the Battletech simulator pods, if you remember that. Like
I absolutely remember them, yeah.
And I remember reading like articles about them and just drool. Like I wanted to go to Chicago just to play that.
All the way there from California.
Yeah, and like eventually I did get to play one because some place out here finally got one in like 2001.
You would think
or something.
that California would be the first one to get.
But I finally got to play one and it wasn't all that great.
Yeah.
It was not all that different from what I'd already played on my PC. And then if you go way, way back, I played on the Apple IIe Battletech The Crescent Hawk's Inception, which was a turn-based RPG kind of strategy. It was like one of those RPGs where you, in the fights, you move guys. You actually have them move around. So it's like this, but the fights are like random encounter RPG style things. And it took me a year to figure out the puzzle at the end of the game.
Jeez.
I would periodically just go play it. I guess that's the time and lack of funding to buy new games I had back then. Yeah. It's periodically, every couple of months, I'd be like, I'm going to play Battletech again and get to
maybe
the end
I'll
of
get
it,
past it.
And maybe I'll figure. And that was like a 20-hour game. It was
I did that with Body Harvest for a long time. I just put it down and go back. Oh no, I just.
And like the end of Crescent Hawk's Inception was like this crazy like star map thing, and eventually had to like activate this. And it got to the point where I think the way I figured it out is like I figured out that the disk drive made a certain sound when I flipped the right switches. So I just flipped every one until I heard it make the sounds, and then I went and like only flipped the ones that made the sound, and then it worked. I'm pretty sure I still don't know why the solution was correct, but I figured it out off of disk drive noise. And then, of course, the biggest problem was the quest for that in that game was you had to find these hidden mechs your father had hidden, and they were like variable mechs, which meant they could transform into jets.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. I got to get these things. And of course, it ends when you find them. And you never get to use them. You fly off the planet with them. It's like, all right, now we're going to go do the next thing. And it's like, oh, I never get to use the mech that I spent all this time looking for. So
this is a turn-based strategy.
It's a turn-based strategy game, although it tries to kind of action it up a little bit in terms of...
the promotional media for this game, in my opinion, was very misleading.
Oh, what?
Yeah, if you looked at the trailers and stuff for this game, like they didn't put out much gameplay before the game came out. If you look at the trailers, like, it does not appear to be a turn-based strategy game whenever you watch, like, a lot of the cinematic stuff that they put out.
Well, it's funny because, like, the cinematic stuff in the game
Although XCOM could be guilty of that as well.
A little bit. The cinematic stuff in this game, from what I played, is just, like...
Not very.
Well, no, it's just like, it's that same kind of indie game, especially the sci-fi PC stuff does this a lot, like the 4X games. It's just, like, watercolor paintings that like you slowly track the camera over while someone talks, like ducks VO over it, which is fine, but I'm getting kind of tired of that. I'm kind of tired of the motion graphic thing
Yeah.
at this point. So yeah, it's a turn-based strategy game. I mean, there is some real-time motion. It's not like on a grid, or at least not a very visible grid. There is sort of a grid of where you can move. It's just sort of kind of well hidden. The main thing is like what they're trying to do here is simulate kind of the Battletech gameplay, and I think they do that pretty well. So the three main things in Battletech are position and cover, heat, and damage, and they balance all three of those things pretty well in this. And like when you target an enemy, you can choose how many of your weapons to fire. You get a percentage for each type of weapon and your percentage to hit. Yeah, is the weapon going to do this much damage? Where you have to know what do you want to use a laser on this thing? Or do you want to use an autocannon?
You don't want to overuse it either.
Right, and you don't want to overuse it.
You don't want to use like some weapon that's gonna, when there's 10% left on the enemy's health, you don't want to use a weapon that'll take 60.
Right,
because it'll overheat.
Yeah, because you can overheat, and then you have to let it. You can either let it cool, or you can go ahead and just burn the heat, and they're going to damage your mech.
Right.
And then of course you can also target individual pieces of the mech. This comes into play later where like after the mission's done, you get salvage. So it's a lot faster to kind of target like the ammo storage of a mech and blow it up by a critical hit that way. But if you do that, you're not going to get a lot of stuff out of it.
Because it'll blow it all
It'll blow everything up, so you won't get as much salvage. And that.
What do you use the salvage for?
Upgrading and repairs.
So there's crafting in the game.
I think you have to like choose weapons and like your load, because choosing your weapons and your loadout is very important because lasers and that kind of thing are very powerful, but they can generate a lot of heat. So you also want projectile weapons and long-range missile stuff. And then there's like things where like you can do missile bombardments as long as one of your allies has a line of sight on an enemy. So like there's there's a whole thing where like there's always a big dichotomy between light, medium, and heavy mechs, and you want to use the light mechs to kind of do scouting stuff. And there's a nice little thing where you can it's called reserve basically, and it means you can like delay the turn of a certain mech or a certain pilot and run them around. And so like if you want the light mechs to kind of do like a line of sight thing, you delay them, and then like you do that later. So there is a lot in there. It's not. I wouldn't say it's not kind of as mercilessly puzzle driven or mercilessly like hardcore as Into the Breach, which was kind of the one we talked about a few weeks ago.
A lot of people are saying that's game of the year.
Yeah, it's up. I mean, Ken Levine called it game of the year just today on Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
If you like that kind of game, there's not really anything else out there this year.
I mean, there's really nothing else like this out there either. That's new this year.
No, certainly not in terms. I mean, it scratches the Battletech itch. I'll give it that. Like it feels like playing Battletech because of the heat management and the body part targeting and that kind of thing. Like it doesn't feel like playing XCOM outside of the same genre. And it also kind of delves. One of the things that maybe people
pretty dry.
It
Watching
is.
this B-roll, it's like it's not very flashy.
No, it's not. But the other thing, of course, is like the other thing that's dry about it is Battletech.
The desert.
Well, no, Battletech is maybe only second to Warhammer 40K in terms of just endless amounts of lore.
Yeah.
And just like the political machinations. I mean, the game even kind of sets you up with that, where like it talks about this and the expansion of this and the reach, and then like when you make your pilot, which is surprisingly flexible, I might add. Like you can make just about anybody. You can even choose your pronoun. Like you can be a he or a she or a they.
Wow.
And design your character however you want. Although I did notice that your gruff instructor guy calls you lad, because I picked a female character and he called me lad the whole
really?
time. So I'm like, okay. But like you have to pick your origin, like where you were born and where you're from, and like there's just endless number. You're from this sector of space or that sector, or the outer reaches or the other, and it's just like you get to design your backstory pretty detailed, and it goes into some serious lore. And there's like you pick your emblem for multiplayer, and it's like this is a huge list of emblems, and I'm like, every single one of these emblems has a giant backstory to it. I'm sure. I don't know what it is, but I'm guaranteed. I picked one that had a spider on it because I like spiders, and I'm like, I'm sure I'm saying something terrible about myself by picking. I probably picked like the worst house in the history of Battletech novels.
I wouldn't lose too much sleep over
probably
it.
not, but
I really wouldn't let it get to you. So, did you enjoy the time that you spent with it?
I did enjoy it. I just got angry that they wanted me. This weird little glitch was going to force me to
Well, look,
do it again.
a glitch in the training mission, that's pretty much
Not encouraging.
inexcusable.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what happens on the training mission, what's going to happen when you're like 80 battles deep or whatever? Because there's a lot of number crunching that goes on in this.
Frankly, this is kind of holding me over until that more action simulator-based one is supposed to come out at some point. We've seen teasers for it, I guess. I don't know if there's any more information on that.
This franchise has been away for a long time.
At this point, I would take Mech Assault 3. I mean, God, whatever you want, guys. Whatever I need to get some decent robot action on this thing. But I like what they're doing. I think, it's fun to see just all the weapons just hit things and blow their arms off, and there's some fun physics when they die, and I like it. Like, it's priced about right.
How much is it?
It's like $30, I think.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about having.
It scored pretty well with critics.
Yeah, I feel like it's I agree with you that the marketing is a little sketchy in terms of selling what it is.
Yeah.
But if you know what it is,
that's why we have GameFace.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into. I feel like so far I'm like, okay. I mean, I will go back to it when I have cooled off from it. It's just unfortunately I hadn't gotten to it until today, and I sat down to play it this afternoon before I came here, and then I'm like, well, I'm not going to just play that twice. Like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to go back and play God of War before I have to leave the house. Basically, I was like, look, it's up against a very strong contender.
That's a real tough decision. A game that basically broke in the tutorial, or God of War.
So, and I don't know, maybe I was doing something wrong, but every time I'd hit resolve turn, it would just blank out the two guys, and the only one I could move was the girl who couldn't get through the dude who was just standing in the canyon. I'm like, your queen demands access to the frickin' escape ship, dude. Move.
If someone with your level of knowledge, expertise, and experience with video games had a problem getting through the tutorial, it's not your fault.
I don't know.
It's
the
designer.
We all have our Dean Takahashi Cuphead moment now and again. But I'm pretty sure I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, every other turn I took, like, everybody got a chance to move, and all of a sudden they weren't allowed to move except her, and the guy was in the way. So I don't know.
Even if there was a way to get around it, the fact that you couldn't figure it out means that it was a problem with the way the game was designed.
Yeah.
Period.
And it's the tutorial.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Like,
hopefully everyone else will have better luck if they give this a whirl.
Yeah, so be aware, maybe it's got some rough edges, but like if you're into Battletech, like it felt pretty legit what I played of it. If it is not so, I will come back next week and say, don't listen to me. I was totally wrong.
Shane drugged me.
And three missions in, all the robots turn into unicorns and fly away.
That would be pretty.
Although, again, might be worth the money just to see that.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the return of Valve, Matt.
Believe that when I see
Could it be that Valve has come back to lead us all to salvation?
No.
No?
Probably not.
Valve bought a video game developer, Matt.
Yeah, they're going to make
a company that all it does is make video games.
Walking simulators.
Ish.
Well, they made Firewatch, right?
Yeah. Campo Santo. Yeah. But still, it's a video game.
True.
It's a piece of electronic entertainment that you interact with. Therefore, it is a video game.
All right. Well, maybe Valve will get them pumping out, a game every 6 years now, and we'll.
Well, that's my question. Why? Why has Valve done this?
I don't know. Like what about? I mean,
really, it's like if you're just going to buy one and it's a small fry.
I mean, I'm not questioning the idea that someone would want to buy the people who made Firewatch.
No,
Firewatch is great.
That's not what I'm talking about.
But like, I don't know what Valve's doing here.
If you've made an internal decision that, hey, we're going to start making video games again.
What if Half-Life 3 is a walking simulator?
At this point, I'd take it.
Yeah, like it's like just
as long as
just
the
closure,
story
please.
gets I'm good. But look, if you have decided internally, Gaben has spoken and said, we are going to return to the way we were. We're going to make groundbreaking video games that are genre whatever. We're coming back as a game developer instead of just a services company. Is this the way you do it?
No, I would just
buy some little dinky.
I'd hire more people and say make a video game.
Yeah.
With my infinite money.
I mean, Valve could have bought any indie developer. It could have bought all of the indie developers. It could have bought indie games if it wanted to. But for some reason, it chose this one. And look, we have heard rumblings lately that Valve has said, hey, we're starting to get back into game development. This obviously is a sign. But what does it mean? It means we're going to get Campo Santo games for PC. We were already getting them.
Well, just slower now.
I'm baffled by this, Matt.
Maybe this is how they plan to do Portal 3.
I can't, but that's not this development studio's strength.
Well, they can learn.
Do you pay a lot of money for a studio to learn?
I don't know. They saw something in them.
I mean, look, Firewatch is great.
Maybe they think they can do a walking simulator where you buy hats.
They're going to try to turn a walking simulator into a game as a service. Whoever figures that out is a genius. I'll say that much. I'm just puzzled by this. I really cannot understand. And maybe we'll learn more at E3 or something, and this will make sense. But I'm glad. I'm happy. I just can't make sense of it.
I mean, maybe like with Firewatch, like it's such a heavily first-person thing. They could see them as potentially good in VR stuff. But like it
stopped VR development too, though. When was the last time Valve put out a new VR game?
I don't know.
Like the launch week for Vive, like.
Well, you gotta start somewhere.
I mean, it never even really went in on Vive. After all the bluster before it came out and supporting it, saying it's their official platform, Valve really did nothing for it.
Well, sort of the Steam Machines thing too.
Yeah.
Like they talk a big game, but then nothing happens.
They end up not doing anything about it.
And like you're just like, what about the thing? And they're just like busy. They're Gus Van Sant in Jay and Bob Strike Back, where it's like counting money. I'm busy, Ben. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like can't do it. Can we get an action of it? No, busy, Ben. Told you.
I mean, look, I could see if maybe in a week we hear it and now Valve has bought blah, blah, blah. And then a month after that at E3 or whatever we hear, now Valve is...
Bought the guys who made Inside.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, like, then I see a strategy. But with this, it's like the developer's random. Like, if I were going to... If I was like, okay, I want to buy an indie developer, this would not be one of the first... No offense to them. They've made a great game, but this is not the developer that I would purchase first.
I think this is a big wait and see right now. We got to see what they do next. Like I don't have a theory on what they're planning unless they just really want to make games like Firewatch. But
usually when you make a big purchase like that, there's a press release that goes along with it. There's quotes from both the new parent company and from the company that was purchased.
Gabe Newell doesn't need no stinking press releases.
I mean, look, if you're Campo Santo, though, and you're this little guy who's put all this energy and money and time into building this little brand into something, and then Valve buys you, don't you want to at least be able to put out some kind of a statement? Like,
maybe,
if someone were to buy SIFTD, like, I'd want to say, hey, like...
But then what if Gabe says, no, just go to sleep on your pile of money?
Yeah. What about fans of Campo Santo, though? They're all left dangling in the wind. They're like, what's going on? Like, one of my favorite studios is now bought, and no one's saying anything about what's going on. It just seems, the whole thing seems
like
crazy.
3 days. Like, give it some time.
Yeah, but it's happened. That stuff happens on day one when everything's...
Yeah, you wouldn't get that, though. You just get some kind of like, oh, we're very excited to work with things about the stuff, and these very admire of all the things of that they've made over the. It's like it's you
usually get a statement like where Valve would say, "We admire Campo Santo's work, and we look forward to them continuing down their
all right,
path."
We'll just assume they say. I mean, that stuff's fluffed. I don't care about that. I don't care that they didn't say that. It's like it's about as substantial as like a post-game interview or somebody.
But imagine if it was like a developer that you really care about. What if it was CD Projekt Red that was bought by Valve and it happens, and you're sitting there 3 days later, and you still don't know if they're ever going to make another Witcher, or if Valve has just absorbed them into their studio to work on a bunch of other crap. Like, it does matter.
Well, but I'll just wait and see what happens. Like, what can I do about it? Like, I don't expect immediate answers for these things. These things take time.
I didn't say you should do anything about it. This is a podcast about video games. We're trying to talk about it.
Right, but I just don't see, like, okay, they bought this company, and they're probably going to have them make a game for them. Like, I don't think it's...
Do we know that?
maybe. Like, well, I don't know why else you buy them unless you're just going to I mean, they're not EA. Like,
They're not gonna just buy them
EA's the one that takes them out back and shoots them, throws them in the pit. Like, I mean, Valve doesn't dismantle you usually.
Well, has Valve ever bought a developer before?
Yeah, they bought the people who made Left 4 Dead, didn't they? The Turtle Rock.
Did
Is that
they?
what I thought they bought them.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I don't know. No one's heard from them in years. They're all dead. I don't
no one's heard from Valve in years. They are all dead. This is just shocking to me. I just don't understand where Valve is going with this, and with no communication from either company, we won't know. Mm-hmm. We may never know.
I assume they'll put something out at some point, or they'll dissolve somewhere, and we'll be like, "What was that about?" And Gabe's like,
"Oh, we were buddies. I just figured I'd give him $100 million." Which he could very well do. Yeah. Which he could very well do for every one of his close friends.
I have a feeling they didn't sell them for that much.
What do you that's kind of fun. What do you think a studio like that would sell for?
I don't know. I would guess like in the 7 to 10 million range.
Yeah, because you figure, I think usually how it works is you take your annual revenue and you multiply it by like 8.
Yeah, or it depends, like 5 or 8 depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
I'm
guessing Firewatch probably made $1 million.
Yeah, more than that. Probably.
Yeah.
I think it did pretty well, especially if you factor in. Again, Steam means that Valve knows exactly how well it did.
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, remember there was that dust up though on Steam, wasn't there, with Firewatch? Didn't something happen with like user reviews or something? Something happened.
Yeah, there was a thing where like they got a lot of negative reviews all of a sudden because they said, was it them?
Yes, it was them.
Because it was like they tweeted something about how they didn't like Trump or something like that.
Was that what it was?
I thought it or something. It was some political style thing, like a political thing or some like social justice thing where they said they stated their opinion on it, and a bunch of vindictive dickheads decided to down review them for.
It was something to do with reviews on Steam. That's what I seem to remember.
It was something like that. I think that was them. I don't remember for sure.
Maybe somebody in chat can look it up for us and drop some science on us about that, because it's funny, it just popped in my head.
That happened to somebody recently, but it sounds right that it was them, but I'm not sure if it was.
Oh, they wanted their Let's Play from PewDiePie being taken
down.
Oh,
that's right.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, so that's why I remember there was some kind of a little dust up with them not that long ago.
All right, so
not that has anything to do with them being purchased or anything.
Well, I don't know. Insult PewDiePie and see if you get bought.
Now all these indie studios are going to go after Pewds.
Maybe that's what Valve's after. We're building a fleet of developers who just hate PewDiePie. We're going to make games that he's not allowed to play.
That he will hate to play. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe E3
Valve has the money to do that.
It absolutely does. Yes, it has the money to do pretty much anything it wants.
Like the Andy Kaufman of game development choices, basically.
Like it could pretty much just like buy an island and start its own country if it wanted to. Like
release Half-Life 3 there.
Right. Yeah. You have to travel there.
If you want to play it, you have to go there.
You can't take it off the island. You have to play it on the island. Yeah,
and that would work.
It would. I would go.
That would be like it'd be like Jurassic Park, but for a game.
I'll go to my wife and be like, "There's this great island I want to go to for our next vacation."
Oh, Catalina? No, it's called Valvestan.
That's freaking great. So I'm hoping at least maybe at E3 we'll get a little clarity. But Valve usually just blows off E3 anymore. It acts like it doesn't even exist. Yeah. I don't even know what to think of Valve anymore. It's just, I think back to like when I first started in this industry and how huge they were.
Yeah, I basically just think of them as a store now.
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy though. I mean, I had a lot of reverence for them back in the day. A lot of people did.
Yeah, well, it also kind of feels like, it's a little bit like when you kind of lose a friend to like a really obsessive marriage, or like having tons of children. And he's like, oh, I just don't see them anymore. Like they have their own life. And like Valve found its niche, and that niche apparently has nothing to do with making video games.
I think one reason why a lot of people have this affinity for Valve is because Valve was kind of they were a shepherd in a lot of ways that kind of took us from this archaic 2D video game world and kind of showed us and other developers kind of how 3D games could play and showed possibilities for how they could play. They kind
Well, it's definitely a pioneer in terms of, between them and Marathon, I think they codified how you tell a story in a first-person shooter back in the 90s.
Absolutely.
And also, like, Valve, when they when Half-Life first came out, like, they were like a scrappy little team that made this mod and like it was like it was crazy, because it was a Quake mod originally, and like it was like, oh, these guys like made good and hit it big because they made the greatest mod ever, and like
that could be me.
Yeah, they came out of nowhere. They launched the same day as Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah.
I remember that, like you had PC guys and PlayStation guys like rubbing up against each other in the electronics boutique,
Which
like,
never happened.
asking for Metal Gear Solid. And I was like, you aren't getting Half-Life. I actually got confronted by some dude who was like, you're not buying Half-Life? And I'm like, I don't have a PC. They didn't have a PC at the time. I had a Mac, and like, I'm like, I don't have a PC. I have a Mac. He's like,
you're making a big mistake.
And he's just like, It was like it was like it was like the Lord had encountered a peasant.
I think that was your first elbow brush with the PC Master Race.
Sort of. That kind of smugness was definitely present. As I'm like, man, I've spent so long playing Wing Commander. Like, I played tons of PC games.
Believe me.
I just don't have one right now.
Yeah, it's funny.
I wish I did. I'd be playing Ultima Online right now.
Yeah, now you can't even buy PC. First of all, Electronics Boutique does not exist anymore.
Right.
Second of all, you cannot buy PC games in a store anymore.
I can't remember. Actually, I can't remember if it was Electronics Boutique or a Babbage's.
Whatever.
One of the others. One of the
It
others.
doesn't matter.
Or Software, etc.
That's right. Yeah, I was just digging through my closet trying to make room, and I found my Dreamcast, and I just popped it open to look at it for a second, and I had a Babbage's receipt inside the box. Kicking it old school. Does Babbage's exist anymore?
No, they all got absorbed into
GameStop.
what became GameStop. And, yeah.
And now GameStop is struggling to
they're
remain relevant.
hanging by a thread made out of Funko Pops.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, and video game swag.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope they don't go away, man. I still like retail. I guess there's always Amazon.
There's also every other. I mean, the big box stores still have stuff.
Yeah.
I won't miss not going into a GameStop, really. We also are lucky. We live in a city where there's still some independently owned game stores.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like going into those
when
I'm in there, just to talk with the people for a little while
or just be like, hey, Genesis games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Or even honestly, at this point, hey, another gamer.
Yeah.
Because it's like the way gaming is now, it's so antisocial. It's like just sitting at home with your TV and your internet connection. It's just it's kind of lost that.
That's what we have.
Human connection. Yeah.
Everybody dance.
Everyone play
the hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Detroit. For those of you who don't know, there is a demo right now on PlayStation Network that you can play. I played it, and it's really short. Did you get a chance to give it a spin?
No.
I think
it's oddly hidden. I would never have known it existed if you hadn't said something the other day.
It's like on PSN, it's always like that. Yeah, I will know there's a demo, and I cannot find it on PlayStation.
Yeah, it's hard to find them.
It's insane. I don't understand why they make it so freaking difficult.
It seems to be counterproductive to the idea of a demo.
And here's how I found this one, and here's a pro tip for you, for those of you who maybe want to give it a spin this weekend. Once you get to its quote-unquote game page on PSN, keep tapping down. And like the fourth time you tap down, it will get to the page where you can download the demo. This is footage from the demo right here we're seeing. It literally, once you kind of figure out how it works, takes about 15 minutes to get through. And then the idea is that they encourage you to play it multiple times, because this game really is about branching story paths, alternate outcomes, although this demo in particular, the cutscene changes at the end, but the end result kind of remains the same. So let's see. Where do I start with this one? It's a David Cage game, Quantic Dream.
Of course it is.
And it very much plays like a Quantic Dream game. One thing I will say about this game versus Heavy Rain, and maybe to a lesser extent Beyond Two Souls, is there's not as much, I don't want to say like busy work. There's not as many things
like
to...
ambient junk.
Yeah,
guess,
there's not as many things to just randomly observe.
Like
there's some.
Like the Shenmue thing, where it's like, oh, you can pick up all the fruit in the bowl. That
absolutely.
Kind of thing.
Like if you remember in Heavy Rain, like you'd open a fridge and there'd be like 25 things in there. You're like, well, what if one of these things is
It's
like
important.
a clue, and you have to sit there
remember-
and systematically look at everything in the
I
refrigerator?
remember before Heavy Rain came out, one of my friends got an early copy of it, and we played it. It was like a New Year's party or something. We played it at his place, and so it was like a lot of people, including like not people that don't normally play a lot of games. And he was playing it as kind of to show it, and like the beginning of that game is like, what's his, Ethan or whatever his name, gets up and gets dressed and brushes his teeth, and like finally one of the girls was like, what the hell is this game? Like, just like daily chores, the game? Like, what the hell is, like, why are you doing this?
Is
like,
this fun?
Why are you playing a game where you press a button to, like, drink coffee and look serenely out at your backyard? Like, what the hell is this? Like, it was just sort of this, like, something snapped, and she's like, why would anyone want to play this thing that's, like, do things you could do normally?
Yes.
The game, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, like, that kind of ambient stuff is not as prevalent in this one, I guess.
It's not. No. I mean, there's still, you could see that one scene where you pick up the fish and put it back into the fish tank or whatever.
Right.
You obviously know that's not like a mission objective crucial object right there.
But you might get like if someone would comment, like, why'd you waste time putting a fish in a thing or something? Or if you don't do it, they'll be like, why'd you let the fish die? Man, like, there's no good choice.
Yeah. So the scene that they let you play in the demo, you play as an android. And you're coming to the scene of a crime where there's a hostage situation, and you've actually...
We've seen this in, like, I think they did the demo at...
it may have been the first ever demo they did at E3, I think.
Was that E3? Yeah.
Like 2016, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely last year. It was one of the things you could play.
Yeah.
On the floor.
Yeah. And so you come up into this apartment. There's a hostage scene outside, but you need to investigate inside first. So the big part of the game is investigating. And so this is a crime scene. You walk around, you observe a couple things, and eventually you come upon a couple victims that are in the apartment. And essentially what you have to do is you have to scan items, waiting for your controller to rumble and waiting for an icon to pop up. So they'll give you a set view of an item, and then it's just trial and error of scanning the cursor across the object until you get a rumble and an icon pops up. Once that happens, you basically go into this other screen where you replay what happened before you got there. So essentially you're kind of watching ghosts. But there's a timeline that appears on the bottom of the screen. And on the timeline there will be different colored sections of the bar that show you where you need to really pay attention. So it's just like a bar on a YouTube video or whatever, but just portions of it are highlighted in a different color. And when you get into the parts where there's a different color, you need to move the camera around to try to find the clue that's going to allow you to kind of activate that clue on that timeline. And sometimes the timeline has 2, sometimes it has 3, but usually it's pretty easy to find the object that you're looking for to kind of complete it. And then you do other investigations, you look for clues around the apartment, and all of that builds towards your percentage of actually completing what the primary goal is. And the primary goal in this mission is to stop the hostage situation that's happening outside the apartment out on the roof of the building. And then once you get outside, and here you can see you have to scan this gun case for clues. And so you move your cursor around and then you'll get that hit, hold triangle, it'll recognize that clue, then you start looking for the next one. And then that builds towards your bigger investigative meter. And then once you get to a certain point, you can kind of go on and try to finish off the case, which is going outside and trying to deal with the hostage situation. Then once you get into the hostage situation, that's where you start dealing with making decisions in X amount of time. And here you can see where they're reenacting what actually happened before you got there. And if the graphic weren't there, you could probably see that there's a timeline there right now. In fact, Sam, take that down real quick. Oh, and it went away just as the graphic went away. But that's where the timeline is, where our graphic for the show is usually. So then you go outside.
Like you're scrubbing through a video, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just like scrubbing through a YouTube video. The R2 scrubs to the right, L2 scrubs to the left. Then once you go outside, you start dealing with what most people remember from David Cage's games, where you're presented with a scenario, you have to make decisions, you have X amount of time in order to make that decision. And from what I could tell, I played through it 3 times. Every time I played it, all this stuff inside was the same. The only thing that ever changed was once I finally went outside to
negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with an android who has taken a child hostage, and the android was the family's android and has gone rogue. And the android is threatening to throw the girl off the building. And it's raised the little girl since the girl was a baby. And you're trying to assuage the android to get him to put the girl down and essentially give up. And after you finish each case, they show you kind of a schematic or a flow chart showing you where each decision was, the one that you made, how that branched out, and how that presented you with all the other options. But it also, I think, incentivizes you to try the other branches and try the other decisions to see how it all plays out. And again, the demo's like 15 minutes long, and I think the idea is that they want you to keep playing it over and over and over again to see the different result. But in all honesty with this, the only result was the final cutscene that played. Like, there's a helicopter hovering outside, and depending on which choices you make, you can actually wave the helicopter away to try to satiate the android to make him feel more comfortable, so maybe he won't throw the child off of the roof. But ultimately, based upon my several playthroughs, the only thing that ever changed was how that last cutscene played out. And I'm not going to spoil it because some of you guys may play it this weekend, but either the girl's rescued, she's not rescued, either you die, the android die, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of where the rubber hits the road, is with the final decisions that you make. So I don't know if the whole game is going to be structured like this, where you show up to a spot, you do your investigating. Once you hit a certain zenith, you can kind of move forward with the cinematic stuff. I don't know, but that's how this one plays.
Seems like this is probably going to be at least the way this guy's stuff plays.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, maybe the scene with the very special episode of Punky Brewster child abuse thing is probably going to be more like what we knew from, like, Beyond Two Souls, or kind of the more action-oriented Heavy Rain stuff.
I mean, do you play as the android all the time, or do you play as humans?
As David Cage, we're probably playing multiple characters.
Yeah.
It's... Beyond Two Souls wasn't like that, but
when you think about the dichotomy that's going on with this game, it would be good to play from both the perspective of a human and the droid.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a refrigerator. Don't open that refrigerator. Don't open that refrigerator. There'll be 50 things in there that'll take you 20 minutes to sort through.
You have to look at every individual mango.
Yeah. But I think what I would say is, like, it's a limited demo, obviously. It's not very long, not very big, and it doesn't really expose a ton about the game. But based upon what I've played, it doesn't look like it's really moving that style of game, that genre, or the game that Quantic Dream makes, in all honesty, forward all that much. But I will say this. It's tense. It is emotional. And the voice acting's really good. The motion capture's really good. The little girl's very convincing. The droid you're trying to literally talk down off the ledge is also very convincing.
You don't understand what happened. You can't do this.
What?
And the
options that they give you.
It crosses out the stuff you don't know, and it crossed out understand what happened.
Yeah,
like,
and that's all based upon how much investigating you did before you get to the conversation trees. So there is some impact on whether you want to investigate or not. It could make these scenes either a little more challenging, or it could close off some avenues for how they might play out. And presumably, whatever you do here carries over into the next scene that you play, and hopefully it's sort of a cascade to where every single player has a different experience. Obviously, we've played his games before where that's roughly been the case. Mm-hmm. Maybe not to the extent that he promised. I wouldn't call him Peter Molyneux or anything like that. But maybe this is finally the game that does it, that gets it right.
Maybe? I don't know. Like, I'm not encouraged. I mean, this is a more effective scene than, like, the abusive father scene, which I just found ham-handed and silly.
Yeah.
Like, my standards for a David Cage game are pretty low.
Yeah, I think for most people they would.
And the main thing I'm interested in is, like, this is a very interesting idea, the idea of, like, robots sort of like, sentient AI or sentient robots sort of like having to kind of reclaim their rights or be recognized as, and that was, you saw that in a little bit in the Second Renaissance, the Matrix, Animatrix thing, which probably what, like, this seems to draw a lot from the same source. I don't think it necessarily draws from the Animatrix, but it does seem to draw from similar science fiction sources that have been around forever in terms of how robots are treated. I just don't have a lot of faith in David Cage being able to explore that topic effectively. You know,
it is kind of, this scene in particular is kind of an interesting dynamic though, because you're playing from the perspective of the android trying to convince another android that has gone rogue that he should put the girl down, he should put the gun down, and so it does kind of play on this weird inflection point where, okay, I'm like you. And so then when you start to make the decisions, you take that into account. You're like, okay, well, I'm an android and he's an android, so what choices can I make here that are going to be most compelling? Do you want to be sympathetic and say, I'm like you, I understand where you're coming from, or do you want to take the perspective of the tough love and be like, look, I'm a droid like you, but you're messing up here and you're going to screw it up for the rest of us. Like, it does kind of provide different angles from other David Cage games where you're just kind of dealing with other human characters. Or in the case of Beyond Two Souls, there's some supernatural stuff in there, but still, mostly you're dealing with other human characters. This dichotomy of androids versus human beings, I think, could give this a spark that maybe his other games didn't have. At least for me, in a limited playtime, it made it harder to make decisions.
Well, it's definitely a more compelling concept.
Narrative in general, yeah.
And hopefully it comes, because the Heavy Rain's main problem was that it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And Beyond Two Souls' problem was it was kind of a pretty basic story and glossed over a lot of the more important elements of her life in favor of sort of these weird dramatic moments that didn't really go anywhere. And then it really felt like they cut Beyond Two Souls up into pieces and shuffled them around to make it seem more complex. Like you could just tell that game story in a linear fashion, but they cut it up and jump around through time. I always thought because otherwise it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like you had to kind of.
I never finished Beyond Two Souls. I did get bored of that game.
I did finish it, but there was like a thing where you had to basically like it felt like you had to create some kind of like, oh wow, how did she become a secret agent or whatever, like there was so many things where you had to just sort of jump into these times of her life without explanation to keep people hopefully wondering like, oh well, how did she get here, and then you find out later, and in the end the answers are not particularly interesting.
Yeah. Oh, here's the flow chart where they show you kind of how you could have done things differently to get different results, which I think kind of encourages you to experiment a little bit, or at least try some of these like more than once.
I do appreciate like the higher level of transparency on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like other than like having because it used to be sort of like with the other games.
Mysteries.
Certainly Heavy Rain was like, okay, I'm going to play through this however I'm going to play through it, and then I'm going to go back and look up like a guide and do the things that I didn't do.
Yeah.
Because it was always it had a tendency. Some of this stuff tended to be a little obscure, and like there's things where like. I remember one of my friends who played that. I can't remember who it was, but he was endlessly irritated with the scene where you're playing as Scott, the investigator, and you find the woman who has the baby, and you're supposed to like change the baby and do all this stuff. And if you miss one thing, it's like hard to find or whatever. Like you fail it.
Yeah.
And like he's like, I don't understand what I'm doing, not missing. And it was like some weird little thing that he wasn't doing right or something, and he had to look it up, and he hated that.
Stuff like that drives me crazy too. So. I can totally understand.
But I like the idea, like the investigation thing. I do like that. I mean, I'm one of the weirdos that enjoys the detective-y parts of Batman more than the punchy parts of Batman, and that kind of thing. And this looks, that's a more interesting way to present this material. So we'll see if it works out.
Beyond Two Souls also free for PlayStation Plus subscribers this month. Not on accident, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably the right price for that.
Yeah, free. I think they want to get people into it so that they understand what's coming from Detroit, and then try to leverage that for the sale of Detroit. But,
although, again, hopefully Detroit is stepping the narrative game up a bit, because I've never been impressed by David Cage's narrative.
Yeah, for games that are supposed to be driven by the story.
Yeah.
But again, this premise is much more interesting than anything that he's done before. So
yeah, but at the same
it has the opportunity at least.
Yeah, at the same time, like the parallels and kind of the societal parallels of this premise are pretty obvious, and his statements that he doesn't want to explore that are either bullshit or disturbing.
Yeah, either. Take your pick.
And the question kind of becomes, do you trust David Cage to tell a sensitive and level-headed story about racism parallels?
No.
And my answer to that is no.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's coming out pretty soon. I think it comes out next month, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yeah,
That sounds right. They usually seem to come out in spring, May-ish.
So not long to wait. By the time you finish Beyond Two Souls, this will be coming out. It's all part of the master plan.
You gotta pick. Are you gonna play Destiny 2 or are you gonna play this? There's your choice. There's your May gaming choice.
That's a tough one. I think I would play. I'd play Detroit.
I think I'd play Detroit until it annoyed me enough that I wanted to shoot something.
Yeah.
And then I'd go blow some. What are they called? The Vex?
Yeah.
Is that what
the
they
Hive.
Are? The Hive.
Yeah.
What are the Vex?
Doesn't matter.
The Vex are the machines. The Vex are the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to our next and last topic of this week's episode. An advantage of us getting back to Friday is that this morning, Shadow of the Tomb Raider was unveiled in full. We got a little dinky teaser trailer a month ago, I guess it was. Maybe a little less.
Like a logo, basically.
Yeah, it was really nothing. And today they finally put out the full trailer. There was an event where the press was able to play the game for an hour. The reports coming out of that event are not encouraging at all. I don't know that I've ever seen people, or journalists at least, complain so much about
a preview build.
Yeah.
Because normally it's that weird sort of like hopeful, that kind of like weird optimistic, like, oh, the game's broken in 14 different places and Lara has no hands, but hopefully they'll fix that by the time the game comes out. Like there's always that sort of like weird, and usually they're wrong. Like usually what you play in the preview build is pretty accurate to what you're going to play out of the box at retail. A
lot of the criticism that's been coming out of what people played at the event is that Square Enix is trying to still build this as Lara becoming the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, how many games do we need of this?
I thought we needed one.
I thought we already rose.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pushing it with calling the last one Rise of the Tomb Raider.
After the first Tomb Raider, she had become the Tomb Raider to me. Like, she had already fought through the strife, and she had kind of had the personality flip.
Yeah, well, she also, Rise of the Tomb Raider, she kind of confronted the organization that killed her father, and like that he was fighting against.
Yeah.
Okay, which Trinity and all that stuff. Okay, I get it. Okay, it works. But now, like, even the title, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, would indicate that she is large enough to cast a shadow that others have to toil with.
That's a good point.
Her. But like, if this is again another like, oh, we're seeing her become herself, it's like, so what are you gonna? It's beginning to remind me.
What do you do now?
Well, it's beginning to remind me of the Bonds, the Bond movies as of late. The Daniel Craig Bonds, where like Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace were like, an origin story, and then you jump to Skyfall, and he's old and hurt, and you're like, wait, do we not get a Bond movie with Daniel Craig's Bond just being Bond,
right?
Kind of thing. And it's like, so like, are they like, you have to give me at least one thing where like she's herself, she's in the prime of her Tomb Raider self, and it's like, why are they so reticent to just sort of call it, oh, it's Tomb Raider, it's Tomb Raider. You're raiding tombs and you're shooting dinosaurs and you're axing people in the head and like, what else is left?
It's just crazy to me. It's like they reboot the franchise, but now I feel like they're right back where they were. Mm-hmm. They're just back to Lara being Lara, and then now they're going to fall into this trap of, okay, how do we reinvigorate this franchise now? Because they had run out of ideas. That's why they rebooted it in the first place. Now they've lapped all the way back around to the starting line again, and they're like, okay, now what do you do?
Mm-hmm. I would argue you just make a really good Tomb Raider game.
Which I'm pretty sure they're gonna.
One hopes.
Most of the negative opinions about it were not that it looked bad or it played bad. A lot of it was just, why is Square Enix trying to push this on me?
So is it like
trying to tell me how I should look at the game? Because basically they're saying, okay, Lara now isn't still yet the Tomb Raider. And what she gains out of this game that gets her there is her self-confidence and arrogance. Apparently, the whole setup for the game is that there's a Mayan apocalypse, and it's the fault of Lara. And Lara...
Wasn't that 6 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a 2012 thing.
Yeah. And so Lara is trying to get people on board to go with her on this adventure to stop the apocalypse, essentially. That's the primary setup for the plot. Here's the PR line. Lara must master a deadly jungle, overcome terrifying tombs, and persevere through her darkest hour.
Again?
Yeah. How much darker can it get than the first game? I don't know. She races to save the world from a Maya apocalypse. Lara will be forged into the Tomb Raider she is destined to be.
Again.
So 3 games of her being forged into the Tomb Raider she is destined to be. So this is official PR I'm reading here, Matt.
Yeah.
They could not come up with a more interesting or exciting way to describe this game. Reading that, does that get you excited about this game?
No. I mean, I'm interested in the game because I like the last 2 a lot.
Me too. I love the last
Like, do you
2.
think that's just sort of like general kind of uncreative PR speak then? Like, is that really what the game's about? Because I feel like, and then like when you get down to it, it starts to make me ask the question like, so what is the Tomb Raider then? Like how do we know when she's become the Tomb Raider? Like, what are the?
Do we have to wait for you to tell us?
Yeah,
she's
what
now
are the
Tomb Raider?
characteristics and traits of Tomb Raider? Like, where are we getting to here? Like, is there a litmus test? Is there a particular pair of shoes she wears? Like what? Like, where are we? What are we waiting for?
Montreal. Shadow of the Tomb Raider will challenge Lara Croft in new and unexpected ways. That's good to hear.
Because I bet it's going to be cold, and I bet there's going to be things she has to climb, and I bet there's going to be things she has to shoot.
And I bet there's going to be some stealth.
I bet you'll slide on like zip lines.
Yeah. Our team has created a diverse set of skills, combat techniques, and equipment for players to master. Sounds a whole lot like the last 2 games.
Mostly you're going to hide behind waist-high things and shoot people.
Yeah, and they'll certainly need them if they hope to survive the deadly jungle environments and tombs. So that is sort of one of the big pillars of the game, too, is that it takes place in the jungle.
Oh, okay. No more snow tech, huh?
Yeah, I guess they're going from the tundra to the junga.
Yeah.
And
I should also note, if we want to throw it all the way back, God of War has some really good snow.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Not just that, Matt. Mud. Did you ever step in mud and see what happens?
Yeah, little footprints everywhere.
So, but it's just like when you step on mud. So when you first step in, there's a puddle, and then the dirt fills back in, and it just turns into like a wet spot. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that game for a long time. Another thing that people mentioned in their hands-on reports is that the game starts in a city. You're walking around a city in Mexico that's full of people, shops, all that kind of stuff. So that, to me, is a pretty big break. I never really thought about the last 2 games, that you're never really in civilization ever in those games.
Just in the cutscene at the very beginning of Rise.
Right.
But then you don't play that part,
No.
really.
And in this, you start kind of in a quote-unquote open world city.
The last Tomb Raider I can think of that had any kind of city sections was Angel of Darkness, and we don't want to think about that.
I thought you had put that in the back of your mind where you would never remember it again.
Yeah. I remember playing that. We played that in the game lab at X-Play, and I remember everybody just making fun of it the whole. Adam was playing it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what are we doing?"
It had all kinds of weird clipping where you
none of it worked right.
Where you clip through her head and you can see her eyeballs. It's so bad. I'm not going to beat this game up. I am also very excited for this game. I love the Tomb Raider reboot. I loved it actually more than Rise of the Tomb Raider, but I also thought Rise of the Tomb Raider was excellent, and I expect this game to be great. The initial reports aren't overly encouraging. Do I need something innovative or genre-breaking from the next Tomb Raider? Probably not.
No.
To enjoy it? Definitely not. To consider it for Game of the Year? Definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not gonna. I don't expect this game to be God of War caliber, but I really like the first one. I played the first reboot 3 separate times.
I loved it. And I think it's the best Tomb Raider ever.
And I like Rise. I played Rise twice. I like what Rise wants to do more than the first one in terms of kind of the scope of it and everything. But I feel like it drags by the last third.
When I was talking earlier about there are some games where you get near the end of them and you want them to end, that was one of those games. It had kind of it had shown me all its tricks, and at that point they're just like, here's another scenario with another 50 of the dudes that you've killed 100 times.
Also, only so much time I can spend in caves in the snow.
Yeah.
The one, and I don't think it doesn't look like this one's going to do it, but I would love it if they did a Tomb Raider that was a little more globetrotting. If even if it was
the old games were like that.
Yeah, a little bit. But I would even take it further in the sense of and I don't think this format is used enough. You remember Jedi Academy?
Yeah.
Where you at each phase of the game, like basically you had like 4 or 5 places you could go, and each place was a separate kind of its own self-contained mission.
Yeah.
I would love a Tomb Raider that's just like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you can go one of these 4 places, and like every place you go, you get one little extra piece of the narrative puzzle, and as you fit it all together, you have to do like one that kind of, mandatory mission that, like let me kind of go out and explore the world, and like it frees up the level designers to kind of come up with new challenges and new environments and new places for her to be. I guess kind of like Hitman, like the Hitman games have done, would be something like that.
How do you feel about video games that have jungles as their primary environment? Think like Turok.
They're fine. I mean,
Don't they get pretty boring after a while, though?
I don't know. It depends what they do with it. I mean, it depends how good it looks. Far Cry 4 did okay with it. Far Cry Primal did okay.
Yeah.
Uncharted does some decent stuff.
But all those games, the jungle wasn't the only environment.
Well, I think Far Cry 4 was mostly the jungle.
Yeah, probably about 70%, I guess.
I don't know. Or Metal Gear Solid 3. That was probably the best use of a jungle in a game.
That's one of those games that everybody else likes a lot more than I do.
Well, I've never actually gotten more than an hour into it, but like I'm just saying, like people love it.
Yeah.
And it's in the jungle, and you eat things in the jungle.
Yes, you do.
So I mean, like a jungle is not a game killer, I don't think.
This is one of the few cases where,
I mean, I just, as long as I don't have to look at any more snow, like really, like I've had enough of Lara in the snow. I don't ever want to see her shiver again.
Yeah.
How about that?
This is one of those rare, like big AAA game debuts where after it happens, I really haven't changed in one direction or the other as far as my excitement for it. Mm-hmm. I'm not more excited to play it after. I'm not less excited to play it after. It's just, I think it's just actually become what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. All along.
Yeah, I'm pretty much still in the same kind of like, oh, I like the last 2, and I'm sure I'll like this one, and I'll play it when it comes. Like, it's not a, it's not a.
No timed exclusive this time. Coming out on all platforms at the same time.
Which is smart.
No Switch version.
I don't think that did them any favors last time.
No, it really didn't. Well, they sided with the wrong team, I think. That was the problem.
Which, to be fair, when they made the deal, you probably couldn't have foreseen that.
Well, also...
Probably made well before all the...
Well, I mean, if you were them and you saw what happened last generation, it was the smart decision to make. But then, ultimately... I mean, they kind of sabotaged Microsoft on that, too, because it was pretty much known by the time it came out for Xbox One that it was also going to come out for PlayStation 4.
Yeah, they caved real fast on kind of it, because...
Once they saw where things were headed, they were like, yeah, well...
I mean, the PlayStation people were mad.
They were, yeah.
Must be, I mean, yeah, Tomb Raider's always been a multi-platform game, but I'd say the original games were associated with PlayStation 1 more than anything
100%,
else.
Without a doubt. I mean, it was on, like, Saturn and a bunch of other stuff.
I played it on the Saturn. It was not a good time.
No, but absolutely it was known as a PlayStation franchise back then. So, yeah. I mean, if you're a lifelong PlayStation owner, I could see where you might be a little miffed. I think maybe people
I'd definitely say that's a series you would associate with the PlayStation.
Absolutely. So, I don't know. We should be getting a ton more at E3. Again, at the event, they only got to play an hour. Mm-hmm. And they weren't able to capture anything.
Really a tiny chunk of these games.
Yeah. I mean, the last one probably took me 24 hours, I think, maybe.
Rise was pretty big.
Yeah. Bigger than the reboot.
Oh, for sure.
The reboot was, I think, 14 hours maybe it took me, something like that.
The Rise was rather sprawling, really.
Yeah. And look, these games are incredibly polished. Narratively pretty good. I mean, the reboot I thought was real good. Narratively.
Yeah, I think the characters carried it a lot. I mean, I didn't expect to care anything about the characters other than Lara, but like I liked her crew. I liked all those guys.
And I think that's the difference between doing a reboot that goes back in time as a prequel and doing a reboot that's a sequel like God of War. Mm-hmm. God of War is not going to be in the position that Tomb Raider's in now 2 more entries from now, where it's caught back up around and it's like, oh, we're right back where we started. I think ultimately that may end up being a mistake for this franchise, but the games are great, polished, fun to play.
I think you just need to get over the fear of just making a Tomb Raider game.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to have some kind of weird, you'll see how it really happened. Like just make a good Tomb Raider. And I think that's what's happening here. Like that reads to me like the marketing department just doesn't know what else to say, you know?
But that's a shame if you can't come up with anything to say.
But it's like, it's just sort of that element of this game that I think, you know, how you described your reaction to it is sort of in a nutshell. It's like, it's another one.
Yeah.
It's just as good.
Or I think the kids might
Come
just
and get
say,
it.
meh.
Yeah.
Although that's not accurate. I'm not mad towards the new Tomb Raider.
No,
I'm excited for it.
But it's just sort of like it's a really dependable dish you've made several times and you know it's going to be satisfying.
But that's a good point though. It has got the franchise to a point where it's going to be dependably good to great. And we could not say that for a very, very long time about Tomb Raider. So I guess in a lot of ways, mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll sell very well.
And I'm sure it'll be fun.
Well, I mean, it's September. September's pretty crowded.
Yeah.
But
any month after August is going to be crowded.
I do think Spider-Man's going to hurt this game.
Oh, yeah.
Sales-wise.
Yeah, this is a game that would have some crossover with the
I feel like people are going to kind of do the thing where, like, oh, I want Spider-Man right now, and I'll put Tomb Raider on my list for when Target does its buy two, get one free thing in November, you know?
Well, maybe Square Enix is going to go back and cuddle up to Microsoft again. Be like, hey, I know that last time didn't work out so good, but...
But now you have literally nothing.
Yeah. And we're going up against Spider-Man on PS4.
I'm planning to go home after this and put an Xbox game from 2003 in the Xbox to play it. Because the Mercenaries is backwards compatible as of today.
That's where you're at.
I bought SSX3 this week. That was my big game purchase. I bought a what is that? Like a 14-year-old snowboarding game for my Xbox One X.
And probably still the best one that's been released in the last however many years.
Yeah, it's still good. I mean, I got angry.
I can't think of a newer snowboarding game I'd rather play.
I got angry at it pretty fast because it's like that's back when they the racing stuff you could still lose.
Yeah.
They didn't just let you tromp through everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is hard.
Wait, I have to try?
Wait a minute, I have to go through 3 heats and I have to win all of them? Wait, I won the first 2 and the guy lost one and then I lose the whole
get nothing,
thing?
Yeah.
What the hell?
That wasn't even all that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
That game has a really good soundtrack.
Most SSX games do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job with that stuff.
I mean, there's nothing in
Did EA Sports Big even exist at that point?
Yes,
it did.
Because that is the big.
It still has that.
That was when it comes up. EA Sports Big.
Okay.
Yeah,
that might have been the last.
It was near the end of that.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was nice to hear that. It was nice to hear it.
Little nostalgia.
I will say that I like 3 better than Tricky. But there's nothing in 3 as awesome as when you finally hit the final trick and Tricky kicks in as you land and all that stuff goes boing.
Everything just explodes. Yeah. That's the best way to play it. Boing. It's like the whole game goes
The whole
boing.
HUD just goes crazy and a confetti comes out of everything.
It does feel great.
So.
Yeah, that was really rewarding. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more about Shadow of the Tomb Raider coming up here with E3 just now about literally less like a month and a half away. So we should be getting more news soon. Not much to go on at this point, but when we have more information, we'll be sure to bring it back in front of you guys. So with that, it's time for our trailer of the week. And for those of you who are well-trained in GameFace, it's also time to get your questions into the chat so Matt and I can answer them. Our trailer of the week this week is actually not a trailer. It is...
When is a trailer not a trailer?
When it's a TV commercial.
Oh.
Here's an interesting anecdote.
We've sold out, everyone.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, here's an interesting anecdote, actually. So back in the game trailers days, when we would put up anything, because everything we put up would do, our mantra was, you could put up anything on game trailers and it would do 30,000 views. Like, that is how crazy it was for like a 3-year period.
Did you ever put up just a video like Brandon Jones staring at the camera for 30 minutes?
Back then, no one even knew who Brandon was.
Oh, no?
Because he was just
There's no personalities. It was just
Well, no,
voice.
We had personalities, but he was like the creative director. And
when did he start announcing?
He would do our voice work.
Okay.
But we didn't even, no one even wondered who it was. They're just like, oh, you have a voiceover guy who does your reviews. But he was never in front of the camera. He wasn't on any of our podcasts or anything.
How did you not put that handsome man on camera sooner?
Because we had 10 editorial guys who all wanted to be on camera because they're like, man, I'm busting my ass doing editorial. Can I be on camber once in a while? So
yeah, I didn't work at G4.
It did. No, it's like if you're not talent, you aren't on camera. That's the way it was. So anyway, one of the things that we never would post on GT were commercials. And the reason that it happened that way was because we were running TV commercials on GT and sales and marketing came to me and said, Shane, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? They're like, well, I saw that we posted a TV commercial as official media today. And I'm like, well, yeah, look, it's done 80,000 views in the last 3 hours. And she's like, no. She's like, they have to pay us to run those. And I was like, you're right. Like, we are running commercials for free that they are supposed to pay us to run on our website. And so we had a rule that was like, we would not run TV spots on game trailers. Anyway, interesting anecdote for those of you who have been around with me for that long. But anyway, this is SIFTD, and this is a TV commercial. We are absolutely running it because we don't have any ad revenue whatsoever for the video game companies. So here it is. I don't even want to spoil it. It's a TV commercial. Let's roll it.
So we've got Ed from the agency coming in to give us a sneak preview of the new ad.
We're looking to get this out across Europe ASAP.
Oh, great, Ed.
Hi, guys. Listen, really sorry I'm late. I hope I'm not in the doghouse. Well, if you just give me a minute, I'll just hand out these. I like to call them the doguments.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in, Ed. We're all really excited to see what you've come up with for God of War.
God of War. Just give me 2 seconds. If I just... Computer problem.
Shall I take a look?
Well, it's fine.
I think
It's all
just
quite
the,
technical.
is
So,
that-
well,
there you
no,
go.
I wouldn't, you know,
Oh, no,
'cause
it's
it's
just
my
that.
laptop, so...
In an age of gods and monsters, a new breed of hero is born. This April, sometimes 4 legs are better than 2. In battle, every dog has its day. Get your paws on this year's biggest game. Because man's best friend is now your enemy's worst nightmare. Dog of War, only on PlayStation.
How committed are you to the name?
That is so great, man. I love that commercial. Yeah, so let's see. We got some questions here. Here's one from W. Matthew, who is always, I will say, the first person in the chat to ask a question every week. And therefore, we answer his question pretty much every week.
The W stands for win.
Apparently. Pro tip for you guys on the stream. If you want your question answered, you got to beat W. Matthew to the punch. And here's his question. Do you think some of the games press will turn on God of War, like they did Horizon last year? Do you think God of War will have a lasting impact, or is it just an excellent game? If it does, how so?
It wouldn't surprise me to see some backlash later in the year as we approach Game of the Year, because you always hit that point where people think, like, oh, you saw it with Zelda a little bit too, where people were like, oh, everyone's just going to give it to this game, and so I want to, like, we need to argue about it. We need to have a well, what if it's not that good? Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that will happen to some degree, but I don't think it'll be taken particularly seriously.
I honestly don't think it will. I think the game is so freaking good that anybody that plays it is going to be like, yeah.
I'm not saying they'll believe it. I'm just saying, like, there is always room for another hot take.
Well, you're right, but you want to have that conversation. I mean, you want to make sure you're coming to the right decision. So I don't begrudge anyone for having that conversation at all. But I think ultimately, once that conversation is had, everyone's going to be like, no, that thing's freaking awesome. Like, I don't know. When I see people complaining about it, it's people who haven't played much of it or haven't played it at all. And I think once those people spend some more time with it, they're also going to see the light and see how great it is.
Never underestimate bad taste.
Well, look, there's going to be Xbots, Nintendo fanboys who are going to crap on it just because...
And PC people I've seen are like, oh, I don't want to play it because I don't want to play something that's not 60 frames a second or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Get over it, brah.
It's like, it's better to play it than not play it.
Absolutely. With that game, absolutely.
But,
I honestly, and I don't remember people turning on Horizon. I know a lot of people saying, like, it came out early in the year, and I kind of forgot about
Horizon got kind of more of a, it's just another open world game thing, whereas, like, Zelda created magic geniuses or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't buy it because I still think Horizon's the best thing from last year.
Yeah.
But Horizon is more of a refinement of a thing, of a type of game that a lot of people are sick of via Ubisoft, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think God of War will hit that as much because God of War doesn't have as many games similar to it. In terms of influence going forward, it would be nice, but like so much of why God of War is as good as it is because they threw a ton of resources at a bunch of really talented people.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can't really replicate that very easily.
Well, I think the other thing too is that it doesn't do anything innovative. I mean, the camera stuff is innovative. There's a couple
Camera
things.
stuff somewhat, and
like the echolocation stuff is cool, and you don't see a lot of games doing that.
And I would argue that the combat with the axe is different.
Yeah.
Like it's at least a cool idea that was done well, and it didn't have to be done well. I mean, it needed to be done well, but like you could have screwed that up about 5 different ways, and they didn't.
Absolutely.
It's good and it's satisfying and it works. It's probably the best Thor game ever made. It's like because pulling the hammer back equivalent. Yeah. Like it felt like Thor in the movies.
Agreed.
But like, I mean, would I like, the people who make the next Zelda to take note? Yes.
Absolutely.
Or the next Metroid?
Yeah.
I think you could make a Metroid game out of that formula.
Yeah.
It is a Metroid game in some ways in terms of how they kind of gate things. But like, yeah, I'd like to see some existing franchises take some lessons from that. But I think the main thing I'd like is I can't think of another established series that like turned itself on its head to that degree. I mean, Resident Evil 4 is probably the closest equivalent, like you brought up earlier. And I'd just like to see more established franchises take that leap.
I'd agree with that.
Not even aping God of War, just think so far outside the box you invent your franchise by necessity.
Yeah, I think the thing with God of War is that there's not just like something that you can just steal,
right?
And all of a sudden your game is like God of War. What makes it so great is that everything is done so well.
I think
you're right. It's like you just have the budget, the time, and the talent to do it, or you don't.
I mean, they're taking kind of the world concept of a Zelda or a Metroid. They're taking lessons from the combat of Dark Souls without kind of going full Dark Souls.
Yep.
They're taking kind of a camera idea and sort of the narrative focus and exploration kind of thing from like, well, I would credit it to Tomb Raider. I would credit the reboot of Tomb Raider. It's very much taken from something like that, or maybe like distantly related to Uncharted. It's taking a lot of things and meshing them together and making it all sing in a way that to me doesn't take, oh, we saw this and took it. It takes talent to make that all work.
Absolutely.
And so the thing about like saying like, oh, is it going to influence it? Like, well, it's like Zelda. It's like Zelda's not doing really, Breath of the Wild isn't really doing anything that no other game has ever done. It's just doing it better and making it all work together in a way that we haven't seen before because it was made by people that had an idea and were able to execute it properly. And I think that's the same thing that's happening with God of War.
And also a lot of resources.
Right.
And
of course,
time,
a huge
and a lot of time.
But it's like I always say, execution is more important than innovation.
Yeah.
Like God of War is it's a bunch of stuff we have seen before, but it's done better than just about anything else we've seen in its own parts. And then you put all these parts together with no weak links, and you're like, that's a great freaking game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't point to something that some other company should steal. Maybe Square Enix should, tell whoever's making the Avengers game to, there's your Thor. Like there's your Thor gameplay. Just steal that. But like overall, I can't point to anything in God of War and be like, that should be, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, games should have more canoes?
Yeah.
It's like...
Actually, I'd be okay with that. Here's one for the legacy. Do you think that Red Dead 2 can beat God of War for Game of the Year? I did say earlier it'd be hard to see a game that could beat it, but actually there is a game that could beat it. Yeah.
Spider-Man and Red Dead 2 are kind of my two candidates for like, I like anything better this year than God of War, it's probably going to be one of those two games.
Yeah, I'd agree with either. Yeah, it's Spider-Man or you're absolutely right. I think that Red Dead has that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I would say this, if Red Dead is GTA 5 in the Wild West, it won't beat it, in my opinion. It needs to be better than that. It needs to do something different. And I think Rockstar has kind of fallen on its laurels a little bit here. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 isn't all that different from Grand Theft Auto 4.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that maybe is a good lesson from God of War is how well they keep mixing things up and how you're never quite doing the same thing twice.
Yeah.
Even from dungeon to dungeon, they keep it fresh, even if they're just putting the same pieces together in a different order.
Yep.
And that's a lesson I would say that Rockstar could have learned 7 years ago.
Yeah.
They do tend to kind of have, here's all the game mechanics. Now play 20 more missions that have, that we just sort of threw together. I don't feel like the missions in most of the games that Rockstar puts out in terms of the open world stuff really, are interested in keeping you excited and interested so much as, okay, well, this is what we can make. And having just replayed Red Dead Redemption 1, I think that suffers from staleness real early on. Like 1/3 of the way through that game, I'm pulling myself through to see what happens to John Marston. I don't care about any of the missions I'm playing.
Yep. I think that Rockstar needs to look in the mirror here because maybe that's why it's been so long since.
Maybe. I mean, if there's one thing Rockstar is good at, it's like saying, we sit there and wonder, like, where have you been? What have you been doing for all these years? And they're like, we've been making amazement. And you're like, oh, okay. GTA 5, I don't think really blows my doors off anymore, but at the time I was really amazed by it. And I'm hoping Red Dead Redemption 2 does something similar.
Justin Horman, how do you feel about Quantic Dream suing 2 media publications? Actually, we had meant to talk about that in our rundown. It's in the rundown.
All right,
we
it does say plus lawsuit.
Yeah, we just ended up talking about the game. It's suing the press for the reports that there was sexual harassment and things like that in the company. Companies suing journalists in general, I don't think is a good idea.
No.
But in this case, if it's true that there really wasn't that stuff going on, I can kind of understand why it would want to.
That's going to get into like where they got the information.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sue them for money. Like, I would sue them to...
Retraction.
Right, yeah.
If in fact, I mean, it's not that hard a thing to believe, frankly.
It's really not. But it's going to be easy to figure out whether it's true or not as well, because you're going to be able to talk to employees and former employees.
Right. Well, it also depends what I mean. It's like if you're just suing because you didn't want them to tell anyone about it, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, it has to have been false.
Right. It has to be a fake story. Absolutely.
And then even then...
And do you really think that anyone would write a story like that if they did not have at least a couple
sources? Well, and even then, I mean...
It's possible.
You read the text of the article, and if it says allegedly or claimed or whatever, you're off the hook.
Yep.
Like, as long as you don't say, for sure that happened. If you just say, so-and-so claims this is what was happening, and and especially if they reached out to Quantic Dream and got no comment or whatever, it's like, that's due diligence. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably a dead end, but if they feel they got to do it, they can waste their money on it.
Here's one from Vincent. How much does knowing about Shadow of the Tomb Raider so early factor into your relative indifference towards today's reveal? I don't think it really has anything to do with it, to be honest with you.
No, I just think it's a very expected...
It's not even that early because the game is coming out in 4 or 5 months.
Well, I think he means that, like, we've known about the title of the game for, like, 2 years. I mean, the leaks and everything have been going on for years on this game.
I don't think that changed my reaction to
No, not really. I mean, obviously, I'm not super surprised by the title. But, like... I mean, to me, it's like how I enjoy a good grilled cheese sandwich, but I'm not going to look forward to it all day.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be like, oh, that would be really good right now. I like
grilled cheese.
Yeah, that's going to be good. I'm going to enjoy that. Like, that's what I somewhere like Square Enix's PR is like, no, So I'm like, she becomes the grilled cheese she was meant to be. There's like provolone in there and shit. But like, no, it's like comfort. It's like gaming comfort food. Like, I know what it is. I know what's going to be. I know what they're doing by now, and I'm looking forward to more of it. But it's like, that doesn't mean I'm super excited to like break a door down and play an hour of it. It's like, it's a known quantity, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm also kind of, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I got other things to do right now.
I mean, honestly, even before the reveal that happened this morning, if you would have talked to me about this yesterday and said, hey, you think you're going to be really excited when the new Tomb Raider is unveiled, even with not knowing, I probably would have said, probably not that much.
Yeah.
It's a known quantity.
I mean, if it was
point.
like a total reinvention again,
right.
Maybe. But like, it's like, yeah, okay. This is basically an expansion pack.
So maybe in that case, actually, what he's saying about us kind of knowing about it beforehand, maybe it did have a little bit of an impact.
That's
because
true, but
we kind of knew it was going to be the same type of game.
Yeah, but even like, if nothing had leaked, if we'd never heard of this, we had no idea another one was coming, and they did this reveal just now, what my reaction would still be, it's like, that's Tomb Raider. It's like that's another one of these.
Yeah.
And great, I like these. But like, it's not like something that like gets me talking. Right. I guess I was like, oh my god, did you see the thing that looks exactly like the thing we played before, but it's in a jungle now? Like, that's not a it's not going to set the internet on fire, really. I don't think.
And it appears that it did not set the internet on fire today,
No.
I might add. It was not a big story. Like, it was not being shared all across social media like you would maybe think it would.
And it's, and again, it's like you said, it's like, is it something I'm looking forward to playing? Yeah. Is it a Game of the Year candidate? Probably not. Like, it's probably going to be like the 9th or 10th best thing I play this year. But that's still pretty good.
It is on my fantasy team.
Yeah, well, I think your fantasy team's doing all right. Because you got God of War as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There was no. I got Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But like those first 3 picks, like
worked out pretty well.
Because you went, going first matters.
It does. It helps for sure.
So.
Finally got to go first.
And you got Red Dead and God of War, which is going to be quite a lineup.
We'll see how Red Dead does. I'm not convinced yet. Here's a new person in our chat, so we're going to answer their question. The JBone29. Welcome, man. Hope you enjoyed the show. Sony releases financials today, and PlayStation VR info is nowhere to be found. Do you think PlayStation VR will have the same fate as the Vita? Good question.
Yeah.
Way to jump into GameFace and rock it right out of the gate.
If by same fate as the Vita you mean they'll sort of mildly occasionally mention it at E3 for the next 5 years before quietly forgetting it ever existed, not a bad bet.
Well, the one thing about the Vita is it was really popular in Japan, and I don't see PlayStation VR doing that.
No, but
I think you may see PlayStation VR be like the Vita was in the U.S. in both the U.S. and Japan.
Well, at least the Vita had kind of a steady stream of,
indies.
Indie, but also just weird anime stuff that no one cared about, but that core niche demographic. I'm thinking of it more in terms of how Sony supported it, which was like every once in a while they just sort of go Vita wild. Like remember 2 years ago at E3 and everything had a Vita version and guys, developers kept coming out holding up Vitas and going and it's also on the Vita. And it's and we're like, wow, look at all that. And then nothing, you never mentioned again. It just vanished into the ether. I could see that happening to PlayStation VR. But who knows?
I don't know. It feels to me like Sony's still supporting it pretty tough.
It is, but it's just...
We're getting debuts for PlayStation VR stuff every day.
It's a serious slow burn. I'm interested to see if they get a section of their own in the Sony press conference at E3 this year. And of course, I think one of the big things is, the big questions is when the time comes to announce the PlayStation 5 or whatever the next generation system is called, is there a VR component alongside it? Not included with it, but will they mention VR with it?
Right.
At the very least, will you say, and your VR games will be better than ever? If they don't mention that, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I will say, though, is if it does end up becoming a dead system, it won't be one of those dead systems where at the end of the day you're nothing ever came out for it. I mean...
Yeah, it had some good stuff.
I don't know if it was all that good, but there's a lot of games for it.
They tried. I admit I haven't felt the need to unpack it. I
haven't played mine in a long time. But I honestly regret buying it, to be honest with you. I almost wish that I had saved that money for that and then just saved a little more and got Viva Rift. But it is what it is.
I mean, I feel like we were on target with the recommendations of only if you will never ever miss that money.
Right.
It's definitely a super luxury item toy.
Yeah.
And I think
for me, it's the sickness thing. It's it's hard to figure out whether you're going to get sick from VR when you spend 5 minutes here, 10 minutes with it there. And I wish I had gotten a bigger session of it to know how it was going to affect me. Because I wouldn't have not bought VR at all. I would have saved more money to get something that will run better so it doesn't make me sick.
I got to admit, I would probably play it more if I had better vision.
Yeah. Didn't have to wear the glasses underneath.
Wear the glasses, but also I have contacts, but putting contacts in is a pain, and having to kind of do that to just play a video game for what is probably going to be about 20 minutes.
But it's not even just that. It's also getting all the stuff out and setting up the camera and making sure you're standing in the spot.
Well, I had all that ready to go at all times in my old apartment, but I just never wanted to pick it up and do that because it was so much prep work. I have to touch my eyeball to make this work. It's a different...
Screw that. I'm so glad I don't have contacts. All right, so that's it for GameFace 126, and that is it for our studio, folks. I cannot believe...
Yep.
This is it. Man, I remember...
Say goodbye to Great White.
It's crazy, dude. I remember... You mean the shelving unit? The shelving...
This whole room is just
all white.
Blinding white.
Well, we have hardwood floors, but otherwise the whole thing
Every time I walk in here, I feel like I'm going to meet that old man from The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah. It's crazy though. I'm thinking about like when I first came to look at this place, and I had looked at a bunch of other places, and I walked in, and like before I even walked through the door, I was like, I'll take it. Then I remember coming in, and it's like all the dreams that are in your head when you first start your business, and what's gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? And like none of it's happened.
A couple things did happen you maybe didn't think about.
Exactly. But it's like this is like a reflection point for me, thinking about what it was like when I first came in here, and like I hadn't bought my gear, and I had like all the stuff that I had left over from GT that I brought in, and then started buying and purchasing all our gear for this place. And my dream when I first walked in was like, in a few months this room's gonna be full, and I'm gonna have to start looking at like trying to get other rooms from like these other people, and it just never happened.
Well, it's hard to compete with people who can find crystals through magic.
Yeah, it's true.
One of my favorite memories is Sam's reaction to that.
The crystal guy. We have a crystal doctor who is like across the hall in another suite from us, and he is very weird. He uses like dowsing rods
to find, and like so sometimes we'd go out in the middle. When we did usually in the middle of the day. We did it earlier in the day. You go out and there's all these people in the parking lot, and they've covered up like crystals with like plastic cups and pieces of paper, and they're like walking around with these dowsing rods trying to find them. But I just want to be like, there, it's right there. Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like, and they're paying this guy for that. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then there was for the longest time we had the woman next to us who gave voice lessons.
Oh right, I was singing.
And we would be sitting in here and literally listening like to sounded like they were sitting next to you while they were singing. Yeah. And then she went and like soundproofed her thing, and then she got thrown out like a few months. It's been crazy.
There was an acting class where people would just be in the halls like
reading lines,
or like fake laughing. Like they were the one day. I remember one day I think they were just training to fake laugh, and like every 5 minutes you'd just be laughing through these very thin walls.
Yeah.
And we're like, can the people on the stream hear that? Because like it sounds like we have like a really badly trained audience. Like,
so I don't know. It's been crazy. It's been bittersweet. Like. Some things have been better than I thought they would be from that day I walked in here. Some have been worse. Overall, the space has worked out well, though.
Yeah, it was all right. And everything kind of collapsed at the same time. Right about the time the eviction notice showed up was also the time the street here went permit only. So we can't park anywhere near this unless we park in the lot. But like, if we can park in a lot now because no one cares.
There's nobody here.
There's nobody here to park here anymore. But if it was still an active building, we'd be parking a mile away from the studio at this point.
Yeah. But I do want to take this moment to thank people who have been behind SIFTD from the beginning. Because of you guys, we have had this location for 3 years. I'm talking about the people who were in our closed beta before the site even launched to the public. You guys have been there from the beginning. You're a big reason we were able to keep this location all this time. I just want you to know that I really, really, really appreciate it. And to everyone new, a lot of the folks who are on Patreon, thank you as well. Without you guys, this wouldn't keep going. I don't know where we're going next. We're kind of homeless, in all honesty. I have to find a place to put all this stuff until we find out a solution. But we're not going to give up. We're going to keep looking, and we'll figure it out. We'll be back next Friday somewhere doing GameFace, so hopefully you guys will look forward to it. Again, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everything you guys have done to keep the lights on in this place for as long as we did. So with that, GameFace 126 in the books. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.